Ja, herzlich willkommen zu unserem Live-Talk im Rahmen des Gamescom Retro-Kanals. Mein Name ist Patrick und ich bin hier einer der Hosts. Wir sind der Retrokompott-Podcast, machen seit 5 Jahren mit unseren Hörern eine Zeitreise durch die Geschichte der Computerspiele und Videogames. Man findet uns auf retrokompott.de und zusätzlich senden wir auf Twitch einen Videostammtisch, wo wir gemeinsam alte Spiele spielen. Alle Sendungen findet man auch auf YouTube unter retrokompott.de bzw. unter Retrokompott und wir würden uns freuen, wenn ihr uns da abonniert. Was machen wir hier heute? Wir haben im Podcast in den letzten Jahren diverse Retro-Legenden interviewt und viele davon sind heute auch mit dabei. Seid gespannt. Ich glaube, so eine Ansammlung von Legenden der Spieleszene gab es bisher selten. Yeah, welcome to our live talk on the Gamescom Retro channel. My name is Patrick and I'm your host. We are the Retrokompott podcast and we are taking our listeners back in time through the history of computer and video games since 5 years. You can find us at retrokompott.de. In addition, we also broadcast weekly on Twitch, where we play old games together. And all broadcasts can also be found on YouTube under the name of Retrokompott. We would be happy if you subscribe us there. What are we doing today? In the last 5 years, we have interviewed several retro legends. Some of them are with us today in the live stream. To be curious, I think such a get-together of legends from the retro game scene has been rarely seen before. Now I would like to welcome our team. Marcel, our technical assistant.
Yes, hello and good evening and welcome to our show.
And we have Ingo.
Hello and welcome to the Retrokompott Stammtisch. I hope you will enjoy the evening.
And there's Manfred.
Hallo und guten Abend. Hello and good evening.
Michael.
Hello and good evening. Wish you all a good show tonight.
Yeah, and we have Robin and Frank in the background too. And all of them are responsible for the smooth running of the game in the background, as said. In addition, there's also Danny.
Hello and good evening. I hope you enjoy our show tonight.
And Arne.
Yes, hello and welcome.
Who supports us with the English discussions. Before we start, we would like to give you an info where we are. We have founded a small retro oasis in Hamburg, Germany, a museum with over 50 exhibits. My colleague Robin is also in the location and will show you a few impressions, I hope. In the course of the show, he will also intervene from time to time and show you some games that we might be talking about today. Robin, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready, and I hope you are. Everything good from my side, and so I will show you our location in Hamburg. And I might show you some of our wonderful things we are having here sitting and standing around. I might start with the Atari 2600 we've got here, and of course, Sega Master System. And we go over to the Sega Mega Drive you call Genesis in the US. And here we got the Nintendo Entertainment System. And we got this Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And we got the Turbo Graphics here. And we got an Xbox. This is the first Xbox. Some of you don't know that there's the first Xbox. We got a PlayStation 1. We got a PlayStation 2. No, we don't have a PlayStation 3. That's too modern. We got a 3DO from Gold Star. There's a CDI from Philips. Some of them you don't know, but I'm pretty sure you will sometimes learn something new from it. And there's a Sega Dreamcast. We got a Sega Saturn. And on the other side, we've got some very old things, but in my opinion, very good and interesting computers. This one is an MSX. This one is from Philips, I think. We got an Atari 800 XL. Some of our people you will soon see will remember this machine very well. We got a ZX Spectrum from Sinclair. We got a Schneider CPC. And this one is the older one. It's a CPC 464 with a built-in tape drive. This one is the Backtracks from Milton Bradley from '82. We got a Commodore VC20. You got the Commodore C16, the Atari 1040 STE with a good graphics. And this one is a Sharp MZ700, something you don't know, but Patrick will. Yeah, this is a short impression. We have another location here I will show you soon. do some walks. I hope you don't get so. These are all computer games in big boxes, mostly PC. These are all PC. And on the right side, we have this is the Commodore table. So you've got some C64s, some Amigas, Amiga A1200s. This one is the C64. This one is the modern version, and an Amiga 500. And on the left side, we got, you mentioned it, it's the GameCube, and there's a Wii, and we also got a Atari Jaguar. And this is our location here in Hamburg.
Okay, thanks a lot, Robin. And now we want to start, and we will see who has logged in. And our first round is top class occupied, and we are pleased to welcome a lot of legends. For all participants, of course, you can stay as long as you like. We will only bring more guests from time to time. At first, we will introduce you to Daivd Fox, an American designer, writer, and programmer who was involved, for example, in programming and designing numerous early LucasArts games. Welcome to the show, Daivd Fox.
Hey there.
Hello. The next is Noah Falstein. He's an American game designer and producer, and he's known, among other things, for his works on the Lucasfilm games Sinister and, for example, Indiana Jones. Hello, Noah.
Hello, and thank you for that wonderful nostalgic rush to see all those old computer systems that I've worked on.
Of course, there were a lot of more guests coming soon, but I think we start with this round. Arne and Danny will be the hosts of this round. Let's have a lot of fun and a nice evening. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, also thanks a lot for joining our big round table here. David, I have a question for you. What was your inspiration for the alien design in Rescue and Fractalus?
Let's see. Well, there were two. The first inspiration was actually from George Lucas, and we were showing him a beta version of the game, and at that point there actually wasn't even a fire button in the game, because your idea was you were mostly trying to rescue pilots, and you had to zoom around the canyons and do sharp turns to get the enemy following you to crash into the canyon wall. And he thought we actually needed a fire button, and he was right. The game would have been very different without that. And he also suggested we added some tension by having every once in a while the rescue pilot that you're rescuing turn out not to be a pilot, but a monster, one of the Jaggy monsters. And at that point, when we decided to do that, we hired Gary Winnick, first as a contractor to do the animation. And he came up with the design. It was pretty much all his. I don't think I had much input other than it had to be scary and crashing through the window. And so I got to give that to Gary.
Amazing. I remember playing your game, the Rescue on Fractalus game, on my Commodore 64 as a small child. And it was so complex. You could upgrade your spaceship, you could find all these artifacts. And I remember these monsters were one of the scariest things back then. So it was amazing.
Yeah. Actually, it sounds like you're describing Coronis Rift, which is...
Oh, yes, of course. I was talking about the sequel. Oh, no. How embarrassing. Yes.
Well, Coronis was different universe, other than Lucasfilm Games universe. But Noah could talk about that. But I know that probably the only thing that was similar was the core of the fractal routines that we use in Rescue were then adapted to work as a tank-based game.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It had the similar fractal landscape. I was completely mistaken there. Okay, but I also have a question for you adventure game veterans. And my question would be, when I played those old games, I noticed that the Zack McCracken and ENIAC Mansion characters were very tall. They were very lanky and tall. And then when we got the newer games like Indiana Jones, the characters became more, I would say, human shaped. They were not so tall anymore. Was there any design reason, maybe because you wanted it to look funny, or was there a technical reason for this difference? It's a question for both of you, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was partly since the original games were on Commodore 64, and they were done as sprites using the sprite objects. There was constraint. I knew Atari better where they were vertical strips. Commodore 64, I think they were also. So that means we had a range of height that we could put them in. Is that right, Noah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's interesting that one of the problems we find is with these old memories is that they're not always that accurate, and it's good for us to have more than one person so we could compare. But that was my memory too. I think it might even go back to Labyrinth, which also did we start that on the Atari? No, okay,
No,
but we
64 also.
Yeah, so but I do know that with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, we specifically wanted to make it look a little bit more normal human proportions because we wanted to be similar to the movie, and that might have been a movement in that direction. Also, of course, the resolution of the screens kept changing during all that time, and as we got higher resolution and more colors, it was easier to be more accurate that way.
And of course, that game was started on as a DOS game, so we weren't constricted to player graphics or sprites. You know, it was all drawing directly on the screen, so we could go any size we wanted to as long as it wasn't very big because of frame rate.
Ah, that makes sense. Thank you very much. I think Patrick has some question maybe from the audience for you.
Yes, two things. I have some greetings from Willy Becker from Factor 5. He is listening to us at the show. He will be online tomorrow. And Robin, if you have some time, he will show us some games too. And we have a question from the audience. I start with a question and then I switch to Robin, I think. He's ready. Okay, Robin, you are ready? Yeah. Okay, show us what you found in the location.
As we see, we've got some games here. Isn't that funny? All the games you're talking about, but didn't have a Rescue and Fractulus. Sorry for that. But we got the Coronis Rift, of course. Then a certain game called Labyrinth. The first time I fell in love with a woman, but it's not in the game, it's in the movie. This one is, of course, another game. And I think I have seen that on the t-shirts in the last minutes. I don't know. And this one is, of course, a game changer because it's, in my opinion, the first real cool adventure game. And I'm sorry to say we only got in such an not a single version. It's a compilation of your best games, and of course there is this one which I've seen on the wall of some other certain person some minutes ago.
Okay, thanks, Robin. And we have a question from the audience, a question to Noah from Sean75. Would you explain how you got the idea for the word Flugeldufel in Indiana Jones 4?
That may be a question for Boris Schneider, because he did our German translations and did an amazing job. I want to give a nod to not only Boris for doing the translations, but to everyone in Germany for being our staunchest fans. That a lot of our games sold many times as well in Germany as they did in the US, which was surprising to us, but we're grateful for the popularity. So I don't know what the Flugeldorfer or whatever it was that you mentioned might be, but I can only imagine that was a translation of something that we did in English originally. I did work on our World War II flight simulators, and there were a lot of Flugel flying machines there, but I'm not sure about the specific word there. Let me just say one other quick thing, that I loved it when you showed the Vectrex from Milton Bradley, because Milton Bradley was my very first job in the games industry 40 years ago. And my boss one day said, well, we've got these guys from General Computer and they've got this home game system. So he had me take a look at it, and it was the Vectrex. And I said, wow, this is great. We should definitely buy this company if we can. So it's nice to see that that bit of history is still preserved. But sorry for not being able to shine more light on your word there.
perhaps I might
Yeah.
give you a nice sound of it because you remember it. I don't know if you've got an own version, but let's have it. Let's have a look at it. Oh my God.
Yeah, that is the original general computer version.
Yeah, we got a multi-card game inside, so they are all games in it. But it has some problems over the years, as you can imagine. It's now over 30 years old. It's nearly 40 years old.
If nobody has a question, I would have another question. And it's a bit of a funny question. I want to know if you can still solve the puzzles in your old games. For example, if you now play Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, would you have to refer to a solution in some magazine, or could you still finish it like now?
I absolutely would need help.
Yeah, I think I would probably, especially in any of the mazes, I would say, screw that. I'm going to use a hint book for that. But
so you're not a fan of the mazes either, or?
Well, when we first, I think Zach was the first one that did mazes, and at the time there was an expectation that a game for $30, for what is it, $30-$40? What were we selling them for?
It's about $40 US, yeah.
That that it'd be 30 or 40 hours of gameplay in there. Maybe figure $1 per hour of gameplay was the equation we were aiming towards. And given the constriction of how many discs we could have, which I think for Zach was 1, maybe 2, and that would seem like a great way to extend it. And in Zach, it made sense because you were actually exploring underground areas and areas that were supposed to be complex. But I think I went overboard by maybe 1 or 2 of them. If I were to redo the game now, I probably would make them a lot easier or make them easier to solve. But some people love the mazes and some people hate them. So a lot of back then people it was normal to use a piece of paper and a map and draw it out and figure it out, and that was part of the challenge. But I don't have that patience, so I'd use the hint book.
Yeah, as David implies, I think one of the reasons for it is that mazes had one of the best ratio of minimal amount of programming time for maximum amount of puzzle solving time. Particularly also, they didn't need a lot of unique artwork for the most part. And I was kind of embarrassed about it. And when we did Last Crusade, I remember one of the things I had advocated for was that when we had the maze of the interior of the Zeppelin, that we had, you were being chased by some of the enemies there, because I thought that a maze that had an enemy in it became much more interesting than one you're just trying to map by hand for no other purpose than to spend a lot of hours of those time that you're hopefully enjoying yourself.
How many do we have in Last Crusade? Was it maybe 3? You've got the castle, the Zeppelin, and the underground in Venice. I guess we're all kind of mazes.
Yeah. And we tried to make each one unique in one way or another, and of course fit them into the storyline so that you were often interrupted, particularly in the castle. There were all of the guards and a lot of puzzles you could do to simplify the maze part of it all.
I think the smaller version, the younger version of myself as a kid, I didn't really mind. I think it made the games look really big. They seemed like Zack McCracken seemed gigantic to my children's mind back then, because
Right.
you could go to all these locations and there were those mazes and it seemed like there were hundreds of rooms to explore, right? So I think it worked.
Okay.
So yeah.
Good to hear.
For me, partly is I had spent 6 months stuck in Maniac Mansion, doing the coding for that, and I really wanted to get out. So when I did the next game, I think, well, why stick to one building or one town or one city or one planet? Let's really go far out. And one of the things that Ron did for me when he updated the Scum engine was to create this concept called pseudo rooms, where we could reuse the same art and virtually turn on or off components to be able to reuse things and have it seem a lot bigger than it actually was. So like all the airports were was the same room, but with different signs and different objects turned on and off to make it look like a different country. And same thing for the mazes, obviously.
Yeah, interesting. I remember there were some icons and stuff that changed in the different rooms in the mazes too.
It's interesting to hear, I think, as a player, hearing your perspective as a child versus an adult, it's mirrored to a degree with my perspective in looking at the tools and how far computers and programming have come, because so much of what we did in those days was constrained by what today, you know, often some of those games we did, well, actually the simplest way to put it is that any single picture I take with my cell phone now takes up way more memory than even the largest game we did up until probably somewhere in the mid 1990s. And it's just mind-boggling to me how much the scale has changed in terms of what we're able to do with the technology.
So we play some of those games in our video Stammtisch for the podcast. And one time we played a game and Patrick mentioned it's a single file game for the Commodore 64, which means it loads in and never loads again. So it fits in 64 kilobytes of memory, which is amazing. Of course, I think Zack McCracken was a bit more because it loaded new rooms. And so it wasn't just 64 kilobytes, but I think it was still probably less than a megabyte. It's amazing.
Well, I did some programming for that Atari 2600 you showed, and the first cartridges on that were 2K, the larger ones were 4K. So the entire game, you know, graphics, sound, you know, everything in 2K, you know, so it's 2048 bytes, and we had 128 bytes of RAM. That was the entire RAM. You know, you really have to look at it as 1024 bits because you have to use each one individually if you wanted to get any kind of gameplay out of it. So yeah, things have changed quite a bit.
I think Rescue on Fractalus was on a 16K cartridge.
That's right, yeah.
And so
Ball Blazer as well.
Yeah.
It really is unbelievable what you could fit in that limited memory. Oh, I see. I think Patrick has another question from the audience. So we'll go back to Patrick,
that's
maybe?
Correct. Yeah. Thanks, Anne. One comment from Shane again. He wrote, this Flugeldolfel makes no sense in German. That's why he asked. He was explaining why he asked about it, but we had to call Boris, you said. And there is another comment from Andreas from Amiga Future. He asks about the rights, but I don't know of what he meant. If he had the contact to the right to the person who has the copyrights. And
perhaps that was for Labyrinth, perhaps, because that was one of the few games we did that was partially owned, at least by some other companies.
Well, for any of the Lucasfilm games, LucasArts games, all those are owned by Disney now. So they own the rights because they bought Lucasfilm. LucasArts, was it 6 or 7 years ago now? Seems like more recent, but so I don't know what their plans are, but you know, if they ever wanted to do something, they could, but I don't know.
And here's another comment from Sean75. He said, Zack McCracken was my very first adventure, which I played on my C64. And that's when I started to love these kind of games. Thanks for this masterpiece.
Thank you.
So if we're waiting for something else to come in, I'll mention I was just interviewed for another podcast that also from a German. As I said, you've got the country that has the most interest in our old games. And Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman and I had a talk, and it was a lot of fun to just compare our memories of things. I mean, David and I found out just last year when we came out to DevCom that I had completely forgotten that we had gone down to Paramount Studios to see the Last Crusade movie before it came out. And when I was talking to Tim and Dave, Dave Grossman, we were getting some nothing quite as large as that, but it was very interesting to hear different memories of exactly how some of the puzzles evolved. And I found out that to this day, Tim Schafer resents the fact that I had helped shoot down a puzzle for Day of the Tentacle that involved putting a tiny sweater on a little tortoise in the past 200 years earlier, so that later, when that tortoise was now 200 years old, it had grown so big that it had stretched the small sweater out to life size, and you could take it off the tortoise and wear it. And I told him now it sounded like a great idea. I have no memory of why I might have said it wasn't going to work back then. But it was interesting to hear our different perceptions over that time.
I wanted to maybe switch over to Danny because he also had a question, I think, for you both, or?
Yeah, I do, actually. I do. And I also have to admit, like, I really loved your games, and I was also like, I hated those mazes being stuck in there, but Zack McCracken felt huge. I mean, it was like an open world game back then in the days, you know. But one thing I really would like to know is the games came out to so many platforms. Is there any specific platform that you prefer? And also, what was your favorite platform in terms of development?
Well, for me, I was way more familiar with the Atari 800 because I actually wrote a book on programming animation called Computer Animation Primer, which is available online for free. Someone scanned it, so you can do a search. I think it's on Antic or one of the Atari archives. So that was my favorite computer, and I never was a huge fan of the Commodore 64, even though and I was also jealous that they surpassed the Atari 800, which is what I had mostly invested in. But going up to DOS, and especially when we had more colors, that was so freeing compared to being limited on the earlier systems. So I don't know that I felt attached to anything after that, but that was kind of where it was. I mean, going to Maniac Mansion on, where we were using SCUM, I never really had to worry about the hardware that much. That was all a different layer that I had to I didn't have to deal with that layer at all. And that was even better. Doing Thimbleweed Park with a modern system and modern equipment was like, having been in jail for all those other games, and all of a sudden having as much space and as much color and objects animating and as we wanted to. That was a very fun experience, and I have to deal with that. Plus the fact that you could make a change and reload in a second, as opposed to way back in the old days where it'd be like 5 or 10 minutes to do a build onto the disk in order to test it. So that was also very freeing.
So I also, like David, have a very fond memory of the Atari 800. I also want to put in a little pitch. I never go far without David's book here, so it's definitely highly recommended. I think it might be slightly dated now, David. I hope that doesn't upset you. But yeah, I would say, I mean, I've never so much had a favorite platform. Often the latest one I'm working on is the most fun, and I will say just recently I've been working on a game that runs on the Oculus Quest in VR, and working in VR has been tremendous fun for me. It's kind of reawakened a lot of my enthusiasm for breaking new ground, and in particular holding design sessions with other designers and developers on the team. Since we're all quarantined from each other now, we do a lot of our work online, of course, but a lot of the design sessions take place within the environments that we're designing. And it's a very surreal experience that I just love, because it's a game where you show up as animals, so that I may look like a little rabbit and somebody else that I'm talking to is a cat or a dog, and we're talking about technical stuff, or we're gesturing to try and say, well, what if we move this platform over here, and the programmers are actually moving it in real time, and it just feels like we've stepped into the kinds of worlds we always wanted to create. David and I would talk about Larry Niven's Dream Park books and the speculations back in the 80s about what the future would look like. And VR has definitely been wonderful that way.
Yeah, and just to say that's what I'm working on right now too, is a VR version of a game I did 6 years ago, which is a Rube Goldberg game, and having a blast playing with that and just being immersive. That was actually, when I first got into gaming, that was my goal, was fully immersive stuff back in the mid 70s before it was possible. And that was always something I wanted to be working on, like some like Dream Park stuff. And so now to be able to do it with a $400 headset and compared to what we finally got to in the early 90s with tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment to make it work. So I love it. So that's probably, if I had to choose a favorite platform now, it would be across XR type content.
Okay, I want to that some other people could join us. Noah and David, please stay with us if you want. There, of course, are some other questions from the audience or from the team, but some other people are waiting, and I hope they could join now. Next, we have Scott Adams, the co-founder of Adventure International, and he wrote many very early adventures, starting in 1978 with Adventureland. Welcome to our show, Scott. Hello.
Greetings and welcome. Great. Yeah, good. I'm live. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, and we have two other persons who could join us now. I see Richard Bartle is online. He is a British writer, professor, and game researcher, and he was involved in Mud 1, an early multi-user dungeon game, and he's a pioneer in the world of MMOs. Welcome, Richard. Hello.
Hello. Yes. Pioneer still alive.
and the third person who can join us now is Simon Butler. He worked for more than 30 years in the gaming industry on more than 300 titles as artist, game designer, manager, producer, and author. His ZX Spectrum games are legendary, but he's also involved in the re-release of Leisure Suite Larry. Welcome to the show, Simon.
Greetings. Or yeah, am I right in saying Grüßti?
Okay, before we talk, Robin will show us something. He makes signs in the backgrounds. Robin.
Yeah, of course. I will start with something for perhaps someone will remember these games. I don't know if you've seen it in real.
Oh dear God.
And this one, yeah.
Oh yes, I have better memories of that one.
Yeah, I've seen you playing it, so I know. And I've got another thing. We are in the retro location right now. I'm moving a bit. Sorry for the shaky, but we had a gimbal, but it turns out to be not for a modern smartphone. It had some problems. I have another thing here. Perhaps the other person, one of the other persons, might remember this machine here, or I can just
20.
Yeah, I just turn it on and let's see what's happening. Oh, it starts. I take a seat. Just take a second. And I had to. You remember what I have to type in now?
The magic number, sys something.
Sys something. Okay, let's try sys 32592, and let's see what's happening right now. Oh, look.
There we go.
This one is, of course, one of our oldest games in the retro location, but I can, and for the viewers, I can now reload or restore a save game. And I was an idiot, just typing in yes, and it tells me, yeah, okay, now start your tape drive and load your save game. And I thought, oh no, okay, it doesn't have any memory on the module. Yeah, modern problems for two young kids.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. One question from the audience, and then we could start with the open talk again. There's another question to Daivd Fox before we go on. Many mentioned really felt like an open world game in the old days because there was so much possible, and then you can actually see on the scene. Which platform do you think had the best version, and how complicated was the implementation of the different characters with different capabilities and character-based riddles to solve?
Well, obviously the Commodore 64 is the best version because that's the original version, and everything else was a copy or a change. Although the graphics probably got better on the PC versions that we did. The idea of having to choose between 2 extra characters out of a group sounded like a really good idea. And it was the reason the game took so long to complete, because we had to make sure that you could complete it and win it with any combination of the characters, and each one had different capabilities. And I think that was probably the last, well, that was why when I did Zach, I chose to have 4 characters that were locked in, that you didn't have the variants, because it was so many options. You had to, I think coding and the testing routines for Maniac Mansion took so much longer because of that. Made the game exponentially bigger and harder to deal with, although they also made it replayable. So Zach, I preferred to have all the replayability stretched out in one game rather than having it in multiple replays. To answer the question.
If that was the audience question, I have some other questions. One of the questions I wanted to ask to Scott Adams, and I saw that you worked on the adventures, or you did an adventure game called The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, we did.
And the graphics looked amazing. Did you draw these graphics also, and did you do the whole game by yourself, or did you already work in a team in those times?
I was working with a team. Ken McNair, I think, was the one doing the graphics, and it's been a while. I believe it was Russ Whitmore that was helping do the game design on that one. That one I worked more as an editor and let the team freely range, because I think I may have been working on Marvel at that time. I don't remember right now the time frame, but I did have a good team, and they were able to do amazing things with that. The classic games that are in my series, primarily I was the author of those, except for a couple of notable exceptions. Buckaroo Banzai was the in-house team helping do that. And then Marvel, I did primarily on my own.
I wanted to say something. I just want to say hi to Scott.
Hey, David! Wonderful to see you. Where's the spaceship?
Scott and I actually, before Lucas, I was running a computer center, Marin Computer Center, with my wife, Public Access Center.
Yes.
And one of the things we got to do was get early copies of Scott's games on the TRS-80 and offered to adapt them for the Apple II. And so that we did that in-house and got to know, it's actually one of my starts in programming was by looking at your code and and occasionally finding a bug, and but mostly just learning how to do adventure games by tearing apart your games and then getting them to work on the Apple II, which was actually hard because they're all written in BASIC, and the TRS-80 BASIC was a much superior BASIC to the AppleSoft because it had if then else and string search and a bunch of other functions that you use. So we actually wrote these in-house. When a high school student worked with me and wrote extensions to AppleSoft, which Scott's company actually sold as Apple Spice, which was a kind of extension with all these other functions that we used to do the conversions of the game. That was fun to have this connection and to be able to see you throughout the years. So
It's good to see you. Good to see you too, David. Wonderful to have you here. There were two Davids that were always very special to me, and that was David All and Daivd Fox.
David All.
Back to Patrick. Well, I'll say hello to Richard Bartle too while I'm at it, since the camera's on me. Hey, Richard.
Hi, Scott. Yes, didn't play any of your games, didn't have any of the right computers, but I did buy one of your books, I think. Scott Adams' Guide to something or other.
It looks like we have all the adventure veterans really here, the text adventure programmers and the graphic adventure programmers. I also have a question for Richard Bartle. I think Patrick is busy, so I will just take over here for a second. I see that you worked on the multi-user dungeons or invented those. And I read that a multi-user dungeon allows players to make their own rooms. Is this really true? And did you already back then do this? Allow users to make their own rooms in the game?
Well, when we started out, yes. Oops. The problem was that the users weren't very good at making their own rooms, so we took that facility out. And about 10 years later, it was added again independently. We were getting inconsistencies. We were getting conflicts. Some people saying one thing, some people are saying another. There were different styles. Some people couldn't spell. Some people couldn't had no command of grammar. Some people were very upset that what they were putting in was not remotely interesting to anybody other than them. And the conversation you were having earlier about how much memory was available. Well, on our computer, we did it on a mainframe. So you need that entire lab in Hamburg to hold the computer, which has got about as much power as probably an Apple Watch or something like that at the moment. But it was big then. But we still only had a limited amount of memory, 70K of 36-bit words. So after people kept adding things, sooner or later we ran out of memory, and that was a reasonable point at which to say, I'm sorry, we're throwing all your garbage where it goes. And from then onwards, we we took control over the narrative, the fiction of the game. So yeah.
Yes, amazing. I think it's very interesting with text adventure. Of course, you can basically type things. You don't have to draw graphics for all the different objects and things that people could do, you know. So it makes sense to me that users could more easily create their own content.
Yeah, they could. The thing is with graphics today, if you want to add something new to your game, say I wanted to add a new monster. Say I just pick up I've got a shelf full of Dungeons and Dragons books that you can't see, but they're right above your head. If I was to pull one of those out, open it up and say, well, okay, let's have I don't know, gelatinous cube. I could put one of those in mud within 5 minutes, 2 minutes, depends. If somebody wanted to put one of those into Final Fantasy 14 or something like that, it would take weeks just to add the one creature. We could just add them like that, like that, like that. The other good thing about text is that you got so many more commands. With graphics, you've got a certain number of things you can do on a controller, a certain number of things you can do on a keyboard, but generally it's there's something, I shall click on it and that will make me do something. But with text, you've just got the whole of the natural language that you're using, and that allows you to say to give players many more options as to what to do. They don't have a screen full of verbs that they click on and then hope that they apply to the right thing. I mean, you just type it. So I'm a big fan of text. Sadly, none of the people watching this, other than perhaps Scott, are big fans of texts, because video games, they've got that word video in it, and people want graphics. So it doesn't matter if text is more engaging, more immersive, gives you more power. It doesn't. None of that matters if in the first impression that you get, you see a wall of text or pretty pictures. People are going to ignore the text, look at the pretty pictures. That said, a lot of blind people play text games because they can.
Strangely enough, can I interject for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you heard of there is the new ZX Spectrum Next? Have you heard of this?
The ZX Spectrum Next?
Yes.
I still regard the ZX Spectrum as a new computer.
Yes, there is a new computer. Yes, it's from Rick Dickinson's original designs for the next, what would have been the next iteration of the Spectrum back in the day. This is now a thing. It is out. It is in the world. I've worked on it. I actually converted Lords of Midnight to it.
Oh wow!
But you will be able to guess who the people I'm talking about are. But there are people who, even though this new machine has more processing power, and a lot of naysayers are saying, oh, it's just an Amiga with Sinclair on it. People are asking for text adventures. They really are. I mean, there are people out there who still, to this day, and I, as a pixel pusher, I love text adventures because I can remember, it's got to be easily 25 years ago, maybe more, in CTW magazine or newspaper as was back then, that the PlayStation 1 had arrived and it was all singing and all dancing and people were talking about it. But somebody said that a text adventure was infinitely more powerful than anything that the PlayStation 1 was producing at the time, because the PlayStation 1 had, like all machines, has limitations. And so if you design a monster, a gelatinous cube, or a kobold or a dragon or whatever, it could use only so many polygons, and you can only have so many. To this very day, as a pixel pusher, I'm told by the coder how many sprites I can have and how many different bad guys. But there is, as you pointed out, so rightly pointed out, there's no limitation to any written language because it ties in with the imagination, which is virtually limitless.
There was an episode of Big Bang Theory where one of the characters on there was playing a game and you couldn't quite make out what it was. And they said, "What is this?" He says, "It's a text adventure." And he was reading what he was doing. And then he says, "This runs on the most powerful graphics processor ever created, the human imagination."
Yeah. Yep.
Well, the thing about text is when you make a description, when you describe something, people build that picture in their head and it's personal to them. With graphics, what you see is someone else's interpretation.
Exactly.
So if you put a big dragon or something, or spider or some scary vampire or something on the screen, it might scare the person who drew it, and it might scare, I don't know, 3/4 of the people who look at it. But if you describe it right, it'll scare all of them, because the one they create in their head is the one that they need right there, the one that matches what they want to experience. And that's something which you can't do with graphics. You can only do it with text, because you're speaking to the imagination, and that's where you build the world.
I suppose you can't do it with graphics now, because no, you can't do it with graphics now, because graphics now, regardless of the uncanny valley, and I think no matter how well, I actually think that game graphics follow too many cliches and tropes. But back in the day when graphics was so basic, on the spect or I mean, I'm currently doing Leisure Suit Larry, and I'm doing CGA graphics. So
But all 4 colors CGA and the wrong 4 colors.
No, 16 colors. That's VGA.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, EGA.
The previous title 2 years ago, I did CGA. Yeah, that was fun. But I've done CGA
horrible.
But back in the day when you had a limited palette and your sprites were so small, it's almost they were almost like a text adventure, because if you took a character from a game back then, I don't know whether it means anything to the Americans with us, you had Jet Set Willie, Manic Miner, people like that off the Spectrum, or Miner 2049er.
It was very popular stateside too.
Yeah, so
it was very blocky.
But if you ask the kids to draw him, they wouldn't draw the pixels.
They draw out their imagination.
Yeah, so
exactly.
Every person who saw character in a 64 game or a ZX Spectrum game or an Amstrad game, before the resolution became so good that you could put detail.
They had their own picture of it.
Yeah, and then
we added pictures back to my older text games when we started doing the Saga, which was the graphics adventures. And we actually had people write us in and saying, "You got the graphics wrong. That wasn't what I was picturing. Now redo it."
Well, what I've worked many times out in Hamburg, and while I was out there, I saw the Harry Potter books, and the German iteration of Harry Potter is markedly different from the ones you'd see on children's books in America or England. I mean, he's rail thin, and his hair's kind of jaggedy and everything, but it's the same with every country. You look at, I don't know, well, I mean, Popeye or some of, they all have different names, but the imagination, when you ask a character, or sorry, when you ask a player why they sort of connect to, I mean, Mario, when we first saw Mario, he looked nothing like Bob Hoskins. He looked nothing like the lovable Italian plumber that everybody knows and loves now. In fact, he was the villain initially. So it's like Richard says, and Scott, the imagination is the most powerful machine. It really is.
Yeah, what you're describing is how comic book artists work. There's the Scott McCloud book, Understanding Comics, which has got a section in there about where he gives a demonstration of how he can draw, and then shows the comics, and then says that by removing features from the comic, it enables the reader to project them more into the comic, so they can put more of themselves into it. The only trouble with imagination as for the players is that not everybody's got a good imagination. Some people have got non-visual imaginations. Some people have got non-verbal imaginations. They can imagine one thing but not the other, or they can imagine things but not very well. And for them, the graphics that they get works a lot better. It takes a lot of cognitive load off them, and then they can concentrate on playing the game instead of building a picture in their heads.
When you were designing your games, would you say you were painting a picture in just broad strokes rather than saying, because you'd say you are in a swamp.
Yep.
You wouldn't go into the nth degree of detail about the swamp. You just say it is dark and dank.
Yeah, there were pacing things that you do. I mean, if you wanted to slow the game down, you'd give them a lot more text. If you wanted to give them the impression that they were moving quickly, then it would be short, snappy bursts.
Yeah.
So that the person reading would get sense of pace, and they go into a room, short description, then they go into the next room because it wouldn't take them so long to read it. So there are some pacing things for that, but yeah, you don't go into crazy detail because people, if they want to read that much, they'll read a book.
Yeah.
One of the things with my early games was it had to fit in a 16K computer. I have emails now that are bigger than that. Because of that, I've had players write me over the years saying that they've gone back and looked at the game again, and they remembered this fantastic forest where the game starts in, and they had this lush, vivid imagination. Then they went in and read the game, and it says, I'm in a forest, visible here are trees, period. That was it. And yet their memory of it was so totally filled in. Basically, because I was dealing with such tight memory, one of the things I had to do was I had to pick my words carefully and make sure I was using concepts that were common to everybody, that they would get a handle on, that they would understand. So because it was low memory, this was actually a blessing to us.
You
now,
probably were speaking to children who then stepped away from the game, went to bed that night, and they were like, there's a forest, and the forest in their mind just got bigger and bigger, and every time they kind of thought about the problem, they put in more details.
Yes.
In the hope that it would lead them to a solution. But I mean, job well done. You know, kudos to you. You know, all these guys or guys and girls saying, "Oh, it was a tropical forest," and someone else would say, "No, it was a Nordic forest." Or
it's whatever they wanted it to be.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, and there's me. I get given 16 colors and sort of 256 tiles, and I've got to paint the world.
Not so easy.
No.
When we were doing Hulk for Marvel, that was the very first adventure.
That was the first one of yours I played. Really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. It was kind of unique being the first one in the universe to be able to do the Marvel Universe in games. When we went over to put it on the IBM PC, we didn't have EGA with 16 colors. We had CGA, and that had 4 colors. And that included black. So it's like, what can we draw with this? So
the thing is that people, the public did accept the limitations. You know, I worked on pretty much, well, a lot of the machines. But, you know, the Game Boy, it had 4 colors and one was transparent, you know, oh no, that was the Game Boy Color. I just forget now. But the machines were just awful, absolutely awful.
Plus you had a tiny screen with very large pixels.
And then when the world moved on, it kind of went backwards a bit when mobile phones came around and you had WAP graphics. So I was back working in black and white again. You know, people go, oh, the Commodore 64, love the machine, but double width pixels, whoa, horrible. Unless you're doing a full screen bitmap, you know, you can't really do anything. You can do backgrounds. When you do sprites, terrible. But you know, you guys did infinitely more with
considerably less.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have much choice since we didn't have any screens on our computers. They were all teletypes.
Oh,
it's all coming out on paper.
Did you use a TTY-35?
No, there were VT100s. No, not VT100s.
That was the display.
No, that was the display. The one with the pictures. No, it was oh God, what were they called?
It looked like a Roman soldier with a hammer and chisel chiseling each letter into the page.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't like that. No, it looked like a big, like an IBM typewriter with a fan-fold paper.
Okay.
No, it was an actual teletype. It did have the TT logo.
The TTY The TTY-35 was a common teletype, but
Well, it probably
also
was then.
popular was the IBM Selectric with graphic
we didn't
with
have-
different balls.
Okay,
Some of the administrators had those.
I think Patrick wants to step in. Or was that
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt your talking. Please stay with us, but we have some guests who want to join too, and we will complete the round step by step. And there are some questions from the audience too, but I will look who's here and will announce some other persons, but please stay in and talk again in some seconds, but I don't want that the other people here wait so much time. We have Thomas Hertzler, a German programmer, designer, and producer who started in the 80s at Rainbow Arts, where he programmed versions of Bad Cat and Gianna Sisters, among others. In 1988, he co-founded Blue Byte and was co-responsible for series like Siedler and Battle Eye. Hello, Thomas.
Hello.
Then we have Hans Ippisch. He's a former German game developer, computer game journalist, and was editorial director and CEO of the Computing Media Group. Today he worked for Intellivision Entertainment and the new console Amico. Welcome to our show, Hans.
Hi, thanks for having me. And by the way, in January 1987, I met Thomas Hertzler for the first time in the office of Rainbow Arts in Düsseldorf. Oh, Gütersloh, sorry.
I will introduce some more people, and then I think we talk again. Yeah, there's Ralf Adam. He's active in the computer industry since 1993 and worked for Infogrames, Atari, Sunflowers, Jowat, and Disney, Eidos, and Vivendi Universal. Hi, Ralf.
Hey guys, nice to be here.
And
we have many familiar faces. Great to see you all. Prost.
Hi, thanks. And we have Joachim Hesse. He is a game journalist in the printed online sector, well known for PC action, Spieletipps, and today a part of the Gronk team. Hello, Joe.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And we have a look here. Some other people are still here too. I will announce them now. It's a great round. Our stream is open end, no problem, and we will see how that ends. I see Richard Löwenstein. He worked for Amiga Joker and PC Joker for a long time and was later also editor-in-chief there. Also known for new developments like the Reshoot series. We played here in the location every week. Hi, Richard. Hallo, Richard.
Servus. Hi.
Hi. Und auch schon in der Warteschleife haben wir und begrüßen ihn auch schon mal den Chris Hülsbeck. We also have Chris Hülsbeck in the waiting room, a German musician and mainly known as composer of game music. He also wrote the soundtracks for 3 films and published his works on CD. In the first years of his career, he often worked with Manfred Trenz, Factor 5, and Rainbow Arts. In 1990, he was one of the founders of the Kaiko company. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, hello, oder hallo auch in Deutsch.
Hey, Chris.
Nice round of people here. Definitely some early co-workers also. So I'm very excited to be part of it.
And we have some questions from the chat to the persons who joined us before. I will ask this. And after that, I think we can talk in the big round. And I hope Arne and Danny will have an overview of this crowd of people. Thanks for joining us. There's a comment in the chat from Hammer4875, and it's for Scott Adams. He remembered playing Pirate Adventure and reading "You are in a flat in London," and he was wondering what the heck a flat was. Then someone writes, "You guys are all legends." And we have another question from Enigma. Is there any things modern games can still learn from the old text and adventures, considering story is represented nowadays in fully animated and voices cutscenes? That's from the chat. And now Arne and Danny, yeah, we will have a look.
Maybe we should give the adventure programmers a chance to answer those questions.
Okay, I'll grab the flat in London that was in Pirate Adventure. When I first wrote Pirate Adventure, I had not traveled to London at all, but I had read that somewhere. And my understanding of a flat in London was basically an apartment that people would live in. Probably that was single story, but I made it 2-story in the game, so that really didn't even fit very well. So eventually, because of writing that game, I did get to travel to London, and that was kind of neat because to me it was an exotic, far off location, and that's why I started the game there.
Thank you. And then there was just another question, I think. I almost forgot it. It was about how modern graphic adventures with all the cutscenes and everything can tell different or similar stories to the old games. I'm not sure who wants to answer that.
I think the question was, what can today's games learn from the old games? And the answer
Yes, that was it. Thank you.
The answer is everything, because there is no such thing as an original game. Every single game that exists today is influenced by something else. It may be another game, it may be a movie, it may be a book. There is nothing original in the world today. I will also go right back to earlier on when the camera was going around the studio in Hamburg, and somebody said, "Oh, we don't have PlayStation 3, that's too modern." But that is incorrect, because my main problem with the retro community is their use of the word retro. They think that the word retro means old or aged or vintage or antique. Retro means in the style of something that existed before. It is
I like your way of thinking. I like your way of thinking.
It is something, if Hamburg is one of the most multicultural cities that I know. You walk around Hamburg, you see punks, you see mods, you see rockers. These are all styles that are influenced from decades before. So I play on the PlayStation 4. Every game that I play on the PlayStation 4 owes its existence to something that came before. Every game I play is retro. Retro does not mean Zach McCracken. The thing is that Zach McCracken is influenced. People say, "Oh well, I like to play retro games like Pong." Pong is also retro because it's influenced by tennis, but Pong is possibly the original. It is the game that then influenced other tennis-based video games. So when people say, "Oh no, I want to play the old retro games from the Spectrum," they're not retro. They're the originals. They're the ones that came first.
Does everybody else agree? I'm not sure if I would agree, but we
Check
have
the definition of the word
so
retro.
many guests now, so maybe if somebody else.
Yeah, in a way, yes and no. I think retro for me means really the graphic style or the music style of the old games. That they still, to this day, have games that are based on the old ideas. That's a different story. But for me, retro is really this feeling of the more blocky graphics and more simple sound.
Yeah, that's what it's. See, I was on a podcast and we were going to we have a thing called Room 101, and you throw something in that you don't like, and I wanted to throw retro in. So we had to agree to disagree. That retro is now one of those words that means something that it didn't originally mean.
Interesting. I always thought of the word retro as coming from retrograde and things like that, meaning to fall back.
No.
I would also see it that way, honestly. I'm not sure what everybody else thinks, but I think, of course, you can define it.
Oxford English Dictionary.
Yes, you can just look at whatever it means to you. You're right. So
I think
yeah.
Funny thing is,
go ahead.
We at television, we say that the television Amico is not a retro console. The only thing that is retro that we want to bring back the feeling of playing together in a living room together, that kind of feeling. That's what we are going to bring back, and not for many people, retro means like it's the original pixelated games of that time.
Yeah.
And that's not what we are bringing back, but the retro is the kind of games and concepts easy to pick up. That's what we want to bring back. And so we are aiming not to be a retro console with Amico, but to have the games from back then and the feelings.
Sorry for the interruption. Mr. Daivd Fox wants to leave us and say goodbye.
Yeah, I just want to say goodbye. This was fun.
David, take care.
Thanks a lot for joining us.
Bye.
If you ever
Bye,
will
David.
be in, if you ever will be in Germany, you can visit us in our location. Thanks a lot, Mr. Fox.
Would love
Thanks.
to.
Bye, David.
Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, David.
Before we go on, we have
And
three more.
I'm going to jump out too. Thank you very much.
Okay,
No,
thanks a lot.
hopefully see you soon again.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
so you
Take
can
care.
speak German.
Yeah.
Bye.
We have three more guests, and then we have open talk till the end. And I don't want them. I don't want that they wait more time, and try to get them to the round, and then we can go on. And we have Bernhard Ewers, and known through Battle Eye, History Line, and various titles from Blue Byte, Limbic Entertainment, Flair Games, and Area Games. Since 1990, he has been working in game development, is still a member of the jury of the German Developer Award. Hello, Bernhard.
Hi,
Hello,
Bernhard.
nice to see you all. Hey.
Hi.
Hi, Bernhard.
And we have Rolf Klein, a German engineer, programmer, and pioneer of computer journalism, probably known to many, mainly through the game Ports of Call. Hello, Rolf.
Hello, hello, hi.
Hi.
Hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's great.
Okay, wonderful.
And last but not least, I hope he's online. We have Oliver Lindau. He's a graphic designer of the Bones Park's software artistic team, worked for Magic Bytes and Starbyte, but also for companies like Talion, Eclipse, and Escon. Hello, Oliver.
Yeah, hello. Good evening.
And he's part of our Retrokompott team too. He make our symbol, the, was heißt Retro-Lord auf Englisch? What is the Retro-Lord called in English? I don't know. How is our...
a little icon with a lizard. That's he draw that wonderful graphics.
Okay. One question from the chat, and then we have the open round again. A question to Chris. What is the song "The Great Bath"? What did you thought about that? Because he used it in a video for his marriage. Can you tell us something about The Great Bath?
Well, The Great Bath is one of my most well-known compositions for the Turrican series, obviously. And when I met my wife, she was also very taken by it and wanted to have something special for our wedding. Yeah, so and it's like one of those tracks that were like totally different from the rest of the in-game music of Turrican. So are we losing our host? I don't know what's going on there. It's a little bit distracting.
We're listening,
anyway.
Chris. Ignore him.
Yeah.
We're listening. It's all good.
Yeah, no, the basic idea was to do a total contrast to the action music that was playing in the other levels, because this was underwater and it was supposed to be dreamy, and yeah, so we just tried to do something totally different, and it's kind of like a waltz. Yeah, it became like a really well-known piece. And I hope it's okay if I speak English. It seems like the whole audience is more geared towards English. I hope I'm not pissing off any Germans in the that are watching. Ich kann immer noch Deutsch. Mein Deutsch ist immer noch okay, aber it seems to be a more international round these days. And in fact, I'm glad that the Gamescom is coming together in this way now, since we can't do it like other years. At least we have this, and it's kind of cool to have these roundtables like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we still have Scott in. And Simon, do you speak German by any chance?
Ein kleines bisschen.
Ah, see.
Then we can switch to German.
No. We still have Scott in here. Come on, that's polite.
Die nächste Runde geht auf Simon.
I probably speak Plattdeutsch.
Unfortunately, my German is too short.
That's fine.
I can say Gesundheit. I don't think that counts. I can say
that's-
Sprechen
that's
die
a
Deutsch,
very
but I
important-
don't
very-
know that I do.
Very important word.
Sprechen die Deutsch.
Yeah,
Aren't you
Gesundheit is
surprised
might
how many German words are in the English language?
There are a lot.
Yeah.
Angst, Kindergarten.
My ancestry is German.
Autobahn.
No.
Yeah.
Do you know from which region originally, Scott? By any chance?
Near Czechoslovakia, right by the border.
Okay, that's actually where I am. That's Regensburg, this area, you know. East
Interesting.
Bavaria, yeah. So, what are the questions, or are we now just open talk?
I think we totally lost Patrick, so we'll just talk about anything. No direction, no.
I can give some direction now. One of the first packages I ever received as a games developer was back in '86. That was the music from Chris for my very first game. And when I went for a long travel for the first time at the age of 16 in the January '87, I was going to Rainbow, to Gütersloh. There I met Thomas Hertzler. He was working on Bad Cat and Skyfighter for Atari ST. Then we have here Ralf Adam. I met him when I was editor at Amiga Games. I think we did the demo of an ice hockey game in the early 90s.
Oh, Jesus, yes.
And Yo was a colleague for a long time at Computech as the editor of PC Action. And Richard was the competitor at Amiga Joker while I was editor-in-chief at Amiga Games. So it's really unbelievable to have all these guys together. It really feels like, oh God, how old are we? Or let's feel young again. So I'm really thankful. And of course, I completely forgot about Bernhard. I really got a good relationship at Blue Byte because of Thomas. Only Lothar Schmidt is missing now. So when Bernhard was working on Battle Isle, I think I did a cover on Amiga Games also. So that's really...
a short introduction. Robin found something in our location, I think. And Robin, try it.
Yeah, we have to give some visuals to all of you. So let's start with a visual of this one.
Nice.
Oh my God.
Funny thing is always, ihr wisst ja, einige Dinge sind halt zwischen den Leuten, viele Leute haben dasselbe mitprogrammiert und we have learned that this one has a certain tune that someone had made.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt there for a second? Hello?
Yeah.
That logo, the logo, the piece of metal.
Yeah.
We rendered that on a $50,000. No, we didn't.
This one is rendered? No.
My dad was a general contractor. He had a huge yard with scrap metals and stuff. So I picked up a piece of scrap metal, which is what you see there, and then the agency transferred letters on it by scrabbling it.
Very cool.
That's how we did the logo.
What was the
publishing
metal? What was the publishing house that did that? Was this?
That was my own in-house Blue Byte.
No, I mean, what was the
publisher? Is Blue Byte?
Blue Byte
Publishing. I'd say,
yeah.
We started off as a developer, and then as our relationship with publishers kind of soured over time, we decided to do our own publishing.
Now, was this just for the German audience, or did you get further?
Well, we started with Germany, publishing in Germany. That was the easiest way to do it. And then gradually over the years, we took over England, US, and I think Ubisoft did France until the end of, until I ended up selling the company. But no, it was I mean, everybody here knows that when you're publishers and developers, and that can be a very good relationship, but it usually only lasts that long, and then
it can be a problem. Yes. Why Amiga instead of say ST or one of the other platforms?
I think, Bernhard, maybe you may agree or disagree, but it's fair to say that, and this pays into the bucket what Simon said before, that there's nothing new under the sun, that Battle Isle was kind of like inspired by Advanced Military Commander and Nictaris.
No, it was actually it was a real-time strategy game which was originally designed by Lothar, and it was a mixture of oh, now I have a hole. Thomas, help me out. The real-time Mega Drive.
PC Engine. I have to disagree that it was based on Nectaris. It was based on Nectaris. There was a game.
Langrisse.
Herzog 2.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was the Nectaris was the base, the game mechanics, so to speak, and the story was the last Starfighter, the Starfighter.
Last Starfighter?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually did an adventure game for Last Starfighter.
I see. Then you should play Battle Isle. There you go.
Funny. Wow. No, actually, I take that back. Didn't actually do an adventure game for Last Starfighter. The studio that was producing it went to us and bought the rights to the name from us because we had done a game called the Starfighter. Now I remember that. So, strange how things come around. So why were you publishing for Amiga? Was that the only platform you were doing, or did you do others?
No, we did Amiga, Atari, and PC.
Okay.
So those were did one Commodore 64 game for you, for your play bite.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You forgot about that.
Somebody said earlier, it's funny how our memories are going, sideways.
I don't remember that.
we did a Super Nintendo.
I agree 100%. But our core business was Atari, ST, Amiga, and PC.
That's true. Wasn't the Jimmy Connors game from you guys?
Yeah.
The tennis game.
Great cause.
Yeah, Jimmy Connors Pro Tennis to a great cause. That was Lotus.
That was the best tennis game ever on console. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, Scott, the Amiga was probably the best-selling computer at the time in Germany until like about 92, 93 for games. At that time, PCs still had like the CGA graphics and stuff like that. So
yes,
there was no question to develop for the Amiga.
Yep. Well, Amiga and ST both had excellent graphics. The Atari and the Atari. Let's see. The Atari was the ST, and Amiga Commodore was the Amiga, right?
Yep.
Okay, and by that time, Jack Tramiel had left and gone over to Atari, if I remember correctly. So it was actually Tramiel that was doing the Amiga at that time. No, it wasn't.
They were trying that. There was like a back and forth in the beginning, and then Commodore won out to get the company. Yeah.
I only remember that the Atari was the preferred device by musicians. Is that correct, Chris? That it had a better sound chip or something like that?
No, it's because of the MIDI interface that was built into the machine that made it easy to hook up like synthesizers and samplers.
I just want to interrupt you because we have to talk about this short piece of software. Because in my eyes, this is the main starting point for Blue Byte, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Thomas?
I'm sorry, what?
Die Siedler. Die Siedler was just
I heard about it.
A little tiny game from Germany.
Yeah.
What do you want to know? I didn't develop it. Volker Wertig sent us a demo disc, I don't know, 1991. And it immediately reminded me of Populous. And because of the green hills and the mountains and the stuff. But it was very different. Little people were running around and carrying stuff. And so I think it was our first product we actually actively supported, in an early alpha. It wasn't even alpha. It was a vertical slice, as we would call it today. And so I think it took, and Bernhard might know some of it because we kind of worked, next office. So 9 months until it was done. I don't know. I'm just guessing now here. And so Thorsten Knoop did the graphics, didn't he? Bernhard?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm jumping real quick. I just want to say goodbye, all. It's been great chatting with everybody. So bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Scott.
Yeah, and actually, we got a question out of the chat to Rolf Dieter Klein. Why did you choose? Why did you choose the Amiga for ports of call?
Yeah, that was the platform at that. We have the possibility for the graphics and for some real-time things like showing a three-dimensional Earth surface, which was not possible with the other PCs at that time. And that was one of the reasons. The other one was, of course, I had an Amiga, and but at that time we played a lot of games on the Commodore C64, so we had a little bit comparison, but the graphic was very difficult to use for a more complex game and nice graphic. We saw the nice graphic on the Amiga, and so we decided just to start with the Amiga first.
Where did you get the idea for ports of call, the game?
Oh yes, yeah, that was an interesting story. I was writing a story game for television, for a TV series together with Martin Ulrich. And Martin Ulrich, living in Bremen, has a close relationship to maritime stuff. So he was traveling on ships also for his TV stuff and so on. And we are playing a lot of economic games, and we thought maybe we do something nice on ships and maritime economic and things like that. And so the idea comes from this point, and because nothing was existent at that, we played Hansa a little bit on the C64 at that time. So we merged then all ideas together and say, let's do something realistic with realistic background data. So Martin Ulrich did a lot of research in London. At that time, there was no internet, so we had to travel there and grab in libraries and books and got all numbers from the economic part of the game. And he had a lot of stories for the events because he was traveling a lot also with ships and told what happens with pirates and things like that. So we could implement that in the game.
And how did you get Jim Sachs to do the graphics?
Oh yeah, that was where we have tried to find a publisher, and we come to Aegis. At that time, I was traveling there at United States, and then we met Jim Sachs and Labar, who do the graphics for Aegis, and they say, okay, let's do a little bit better graphic. Then we had some very early graphic guy. And just in the last time I did it, I can show this, Ports of Call making off, collected all our old graphic stuff in this small book. And there was a really very simple graphic we did. So I draw it. I'm not a good designer. And then Jim Sachs say, oh, we can do it much better. And he makes the nice graphics we know currently.
I just interrupt to get some infos about the people involved in Siedler. So if you see it, I don't know if it's too shaky, but all the people here get together. Yeah. Need another.
So this was a very small team for Ports of Call. Only I did the whole programming. Martin Ulrich did the scripting, and Jim Sachs and Labar did the graphics. So actually, a really small team for all that stuff. Took about 2 years, and Ports of Call still develop. We do some updates for the PCs and 3D stuff and so on. Even on the Disney ships, if you come to cruise lines, Disney World, Disney Magic, and so on, you can see our Ports of Call simulator in the ship itself for the kids, which can play a little bit of the game there.
Nice.
There's also a mobile version out there, isn't it? Which is more or less a one-to-one conversion. Yeah.
That's right. We did conversion for the iOS and for the Android, and Mac always still in our pipeline. But through an emulator you can do it also. But never did it for the Windows.
I played that game really like hell. Have you ever thought of doing an update or a part 2 or a sequel? Or?
Yeah. We did Ports of Call XXL, which is a little bit updated. It was done around, I think, 2000 or so, and the 3D simulator also in that time. But currently, we indeed think about doing a big update. still searching a little bit for a good platform, which is always a problem. That if the development time is larger than the lifetime of new platforms, we have a problem then. So maybe we find something.
I know it's easy. It sounds easy, but
That's right.
Okay, Robin is playing something, or he's looking at a computer. What is he looking at? Yeah, one of our computers, and every day we play this game when the museum is open. And we heard there will be a new version of the Reshoot series. Perhaps someone can tell us something about it.
Come on, Richie, let's tell us. What's up? What's happening?
This is actually not a retro game. This is a modern game. I'm currently developing for the Amiga computer, so it's a game which I'm developing using modern tools like iMac, Xcode, and stuff like that. And but I'm developing it for a retro hardware, and I'm trying to implement ideas which were not that common in the old days, like in 1992 or 1993. And it's basically a shoot 'em up series. I began developing shoot 'em ups for the Amiga like in 1991, but then did not have the time to really develop a finished product. So yeah, I kept it to myself what I had for like 25 years, and then I started developing again in 2015, and I released my first Amiga game in 2016, just for the fun of it. It's called Reshoot, and I learned so many things while developing the game, and I also got to know some very some experts in, like, for example, graphics, like Oliver Lindau, who spoke to me and told me, Richard, as good as Reshoot might be, it could be so much better if you do it like this and do it like that. And also the guys from Factor 5 told me you need to modify the collision detection and stuff like that. And so I began developing another game. That's the one you see in front of you. That's Reshooter.
That's the Reshooter we have in the retro location, and which is played a lot. I mentioned a lot. It's every day it's been played.
Yeah, and everyone buys it, right, after playing it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Legally on your side.
Yeah, no one pirates software these days, right?
Never on Amiga. Never.
Yeah, I know. Never happened.
You sent us the game for our opening.
I know.
Yeah,
because I think it's a very good thing that you open up like a restaurant, bar, stuff like that, where people can play games. And I knew it was a bit hard for you the last couple of months, maybe.
Yeah, we have a great problem because we wanted to start with this museum in spring this year, and there was Corona, and we have really big problems because we had to pay the rent every month and don't know how to do that. And without the scene, without the help of the people of our Retrokompott podcast, we will not be here. We had no chance to do this, and it was great.
Yeah. So sending you a game is the lowest of things I could do to help you survive.
And I'm waiting for the other scroller because I like the other direction.
You like the vertical direction?
Yeah. I like the action games from the card halls, and I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, you need to wait just a couple of months and then you will get it. It's called Reshoot Proxima 3. That's actually the third game in the Reshoot series. Will be released by 2020, maybe 2021, and that's going vertical, and lots of news.
Sounds great. Yeah.
It's again an Amiga game, but again I'm trying to implement like audio in CD quality, speech, a high score table which can be saved to the internet and stuff like that, which was not common in 1992, 1993, but which is possible to do with the modern tools we have. And I think it's a good thing to use the old platforms like the Amiga, the Commodore 64, and trying to implement things which feel modern, you know. So that's my understanding of a retro game. It looks retro, but it feels modern.
A short question to Joe. Did you ever thought that new games would be published on old machines? Was it a surprise for you as you heard about it that there will be new games since years, every year, for C64, for Amiga, for these old machines?
Oh no, this doesn't surprise me. So you see new games every year since the machines went from the shopping malls, and yeah, I really enjoy it playing the games, but Reshoot is one of the is a good example for good games on the machines. You see a lot of games you won't play if they won't be retro, you know. So I like the games that you can play even if you play it on a new machine, you know.
Yeah.
So often the games are too bad to play it on new machines, but Reshoot R is a good game. I have to admit it.
I know you are the one of the greatest shoot 'em up experts in Germany, so that's I feel very honored that you're saying that, Joe.
Thank you very much.
But that's actually the goal. The goal is not to have a game which looks like it's playable if you look at it like through Amiga rose tinted glasses, but it should feel like a game which you would also play on a Switch console, maybe with a bit better graphics, of course. But if the game design is right, if the game feels good, it feels good on whatever platform you have. So even an Amiga is able to entertain you in 2020 if the game design is right. I mean, you can actually play some very few classics like for example Effective 5's Turrican series, which still feel great, you know, because
the thing is about any game, but shooters, it really doesn't matter. The graphics are just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
You build the cake. The cake is the most important thing, and then someone like me comes along and puts some pixels on top. Okay. So you code the gameplay, which the gameplay is never influenced by graphics. You know, graphics can't affect collision detection. So as long as you've got the gameplay really, really tight, it could be just literally just like little colored blocks. And I mean, I didn't know about this game. So while you've been talking, I've been Googling it and watching, and I've been watching the patterns, and I just thought, yeah, the graphics are really cool, but the gameplay is even better than the graphics. The gameplay is like really watertight. I mean, it really is.
I have to mention the sound actually, because that's what Martin Amann did, and I think the sound is very important.
With a shooter, yeah, it's like meat and potatoes. They go together. Because it builds the excitement, you know.
Exactly. But you will enjoy the game a lot more if the graphics are good.
Oh, of course, yeah, but that's just gravy on top. That's just something extra. You know, you look at
Simon. I thought you are a graphics artist, right?
I am, but
and you keep telling us that graphics don't matter. I wonder what's going on.
No, right.
Graphics are really important.
Graphics
for marketing.
Are important. I think so.
What I do and what other artists do is I've mentioned this lots of times in interviews and podcasts and whatnot. Is that when kids back in the 80s, and even now, when they look in magazines, but back in the early days of the industry. Myself, I mean, I was a lot older, but I'd walk into a computer store and I'd see all the school kids in there, all looking at the TVs. And so the first thing that grabs them is the graphics. And back in the 80s, the graphics were terrible, but the kids had no point of reference. Computer graphics had never existed really before that. So when home computers came along, the little minds were blown. So you grab them with the graphics, but if you haven't got the gameplay underneath, if you haven't got, I mean, you can have the most amazing looking building, but if the foundation is not solid.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there were lots of examples on the Amiga, especially games which looked great, but you could only
No,
play
you're
them
talking
like...
about my entire games catalog.
I don't think so.
99.9% of my games are terrible.
No. I mean, you're well known for so many great Spectrum releases, and I do know how they look. So no, it's actually, I think it's many puzzle pieces which have to work together. And if they all do,
sure.
then we have a great game. And if just one or two pieces fall apart, then we do have a not so great game. And if too many pieces fall apart, then it's just looking good or sounding good.
Gameplay and the coding is the most important. And then what I do is I put the Christmas decorations on it and make it look pretty.
I think the most important part of a game are the controls. If the controls are working fine, you can play even really old games nowadays.
Yeah.
But if the controls are bad, you won't touch it anymore.
Yeah.
For example, if I see Thomas Hertzler here, your Giant Sisters version is the best Giant Sisters version on Amiga. I love it. I know Chris is totally disagreeing, but I really love it, and I love to see you here in this round.
You said it right. It's the best version on the Amiga, but in any case,
the Amiga version is the best version.
I just wished I had done the music myself. I couldn't do it at the time. It was outsourced for that conversion, but I mean, it definitely has neat graphics.
Great controls.
I won't say anything because there's going to be an interview coming, I think, September or so, with Patrick and I, and we are talking about the Amiga version and the Atari version, and sins of our fathers. But thank you for the kind words.
Let's just say there have been much worse games in our past. So
I mean, we were under a lot of pressure, and I mean, this all goes back to that the game was sold for what, a week or two?
No, I think it was actually 2 months before they had to take it.
It was the first game I bought, the first game ever.
Well, we got lucky there because it wasn't on the shelves for very long. And
this one we got in the shop here because it looks like someone got it from Karstadt. But this is the tape version. That's
actually quite valuable, the tape version.
Yeah, we have a disc version, but I gave it to Patrick for being such a kind guy, and so he got the disc version from me.
It was my first game I bought in the old days, and I loved Giant Sisters on C64. I bought it because of the music, but I love the game too. And it got an error someday, and I brought it back to the shop, and they gave me Bad Cat. And that fault I tried to fix the last 20 years, and now I have my own Giant Sisters for Amiga, for C64. I have the English version with the Brothers of History on the cover, and now I'm happy again. It's a great game, and some weeks ago I first played the Atari version, and I like that version too, because the music in the Atari version I like more than on the Amiga. Okay, C64 is much more better, but I like this version, and without the scrolling, it was fascinating. I'm one of the persons who don't like Ataris, but I like the Atari version of Giant Sisters.
I remember somebody bringing Giant Sisters into Ocean back in the day, and man, we were all crammed around one tiny monitor, watching somebody play it. We were like, "Wow, this game is amazing!" And then it was gone.
Just to be very clear, the biggest credit goes to Armin Gessert and Manfred Trenz, who did the C64 version. So I just did the conversion. I don't know if I added anything, or the boss said, "Hey, we need to have this out whatever in 2 months. Yep. Armin and Manfred really deserve most of the credit for this.
And we know a well-known Japanese game that was the origin of all of this.
Oh, of course, but
that had great playability, and that's why
I think there was
inspired us to do good. Yeah. On this note,
Genesis is much better.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. On this note, though, I actually have to go.
We see you tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be there tomorrow with the Factor 5
team
crew.
of Factor 5. Yeah, they're joining us tomorrow in the evening. Thanks again, Chris. Thanks again, and till tomorrow.
Oh, Chris.
Thanks, guys. It was really nice to see you all.
Take care.
Bye. Bye from Arizona. Bye.
Bye. Bye. A short message to the members of our podcast team in the background. You can switch to us and ask questions too, of course. And Robin has found something else, I think. He's working in the background. Robin.
I found something typical German.
That looks familiar.
Yeah, that looks familiar. And
what a surprise.
Perhaps somebody can tell me why this one is the new version.
Oh dear, I actually can't tell you. I think we did an update, but what does it contain? Is that the CD-ROM version? I mean, the first was a disc version, and we later did the CD-ROM version also with audio. So it might
this
be
one
that.
means longer playtime, better fighting system.
I think that just means we patched it and removed some of the bugs.
But it's better now.
And sold it with brand new. I don't think we did. I mean, I know we did the CD-ROM version, which was obviously. And did we, for the CD-ROM version, enhance anything? I don't think so. I don't.
CD audio track, Fugger 2 time travel rave.
Okay, yeah, that's what you do. You put on audio, and then you also put on some additional music and stuff like that. But I don't think, from gameplay perspective, we changed anything. No, not really.
Did you change the name outside of Germany?
No, the name is a funny story. So the whole story, I mean, interesting maybe for some of you who don't know that, actually the Fugger is the reason why Sunflowers was founded, and Sunflowers later became famous for the Anno series, which originally was kind of like placed as a direct competition to Settlers, funnily enough. So there was the Bomico in Frankfurt, which was just a distribution company. They had Interplay and a lot of international publishers where they sold their games within Germany, did localization, whatever. This is also where I started. And the founder, Adi Boyko, they had 2 games from Germany in their portfolio. One was called Die Fugger, which was a German kind of like typical business simulation of the early 90s, late 80s, like Ports Royale, like the Hanse, like Kaiser, done by 2 guys in Hanover. And it was very successful. And they had another one called Steigenberger Hotel Manager, which was also quite successful. And because those games were so successful, Adi Boyko thought, I'm not getting these type of games from anywhere from outside, from UK or from the United States. It's typical German games, but they sell awesomely well here in Germany. So I found another company, a second company, where I either internally or with external German teams produce games for the German market. And that was kind of like the origin of Sunflowers. Funny side note, by the way, the company name came from toilet papers, because we thought about great names like Black Holes, whatever. And one day Adi Boyko came in, I just came from the toilet, and we have this toilet paper, and it has such a friendly name, and it's such a positive thing, and I think Sunflowers is the name. We were all kind of like, what? So the company was named after toilet paper. But anyway, so we then approached these guys that did the original game again, and asked them, hey, do you want to make a second game? And so they did Die Fugger 2. And then actually there was another game which came out later under the name Die Gilde, but that was actually Die Fugger 3. But the Fugger is kind of like a German.
You just said it.
I just said it. Shit.
Don't say Uranus. Okay.
No, but it's a German kind of like family like the Medicis, and they still exist there in Augsburg. And after Die Fugger 2, they actually tried to sue us for using their name. And so Die Gilde was actually, it was supposed to be Die Fugger 3, but then we had to rename it after Die Fugger 2. So that's the story of that thing. But it was very successful. It was in the pre-Anno phase, it was the most successful Sunflowers game, because there were other games we released at that time, Magic of Vandoria.
More successful than Paraworld.
Sorry?
More successful than Paraworld.
Paraworld came later, but that's a good question. It was more successful.
So you see here one of the most even sold games ever in Germany. I think Anno 6002 was sold over 300,000 pieces. I think it was immense sold.
It was in '98 more successful, I think, than Tomb Raider on PC when it came out.
Yeah. Even I ended up doing graphics for Anno on mobile phone.
Yeah, in Germany you have either worked on Settlers or on Anno.
Yeah, I've worked on Settlers.
Yeah.
We have a question from the chat. 1 second. Prince Valium has a question for Mr. Klein. Was the second part of Ports of Call planned for the Amiga?
No, never. We changed from Amiga then to the PC, but Amiga was a little bit a bad story on the marketing company Aegis, which did get bankrupt, never get paid from them. But so we left the Amiga and tried to implement the whole thing on the PC. By the way, we did. I did the engine was an Amiga emulator running inside the PC. So I re-implemented the whole graphic stuff for the PC, and then we continued on the PC, but never come back to the Amiga. Yeah. So the history of the Amiga selling stopped us from doing more for the Amiga. We never get anything from the Amiga part. There was a lot of non-sold copies outside. I think almost everybody had Ports of Call. But we get a piece of chocolate from Aegis as a result.
Oh. Yeah.
Well.
And then there was some sort of game called History Line, which shook a bit in the media because they said, "Oh my God, you cannot make a game out of World War One. Why a game made for World War One?"
Well, we couldn't make a game for based in in the time period 39 to 45. So 14 to 18 was really the only option. And I mean, I don't know, I think everybody is either from Germany or knows about the index and, all the rules that exist to publish games and age restrictions and this and that. So back in those days, I mean, there were certain things you just couldn't do as a German company. And this was a big decision to not make a World War II version, and probably one of the not worst decisions, but I don't know if Bernhard, if we discussed it and how much we discussed it, whether we were going to do World War II or World War One, but it just safe. Bernhard?
Yeah, there were lots of discussions. We talked a lot because we wanted all the machines, tanks and planes out of World War II for this kind of game. And but as Thomas said, it was impossible to make a game at this time. There was SSI and others which did these war games, but for a German company, it was for our market. It was very, very difficult. It was a hard decision. Interesting is that the history line was used in schools for teaching history of the beginning of the First World War because of the introduction we did. And that's kind of turned out quite good, I think.
I mean, the reaction, Russia was our distributor at the time. Must have been the second game that we sold directly in Germany. So I remember meeting with Jürgen Gertner, who was running Russia at the time, and I was supposed to present the game to the sales staff. So we went into the conference room, and I presented it. And with the first picture, everybody got up and started not shouting, but it's like, what is this? How can you do World War II? World War II. And the first thing, and Gertner, he doesn't take anybody for a fool. He doesn't suffer fools. He said, "This is World War I. Sit down." But the immediate reaction was, "We can't do this," and this was the sales staff at Rushware. So we really had to overcome this, and there was a lot of explaining we had to do. And I'm angry today about the decision, because we could have really made something that would have blown even SSI out of the water if we had continued with a gaming system with World War II and had built upon that. But we were young, naive, innocent, so we did what we did. And today I would have loved to do it in World War II, but it is what it is.
A short stop here. Hans wants to leave us. The last question from the chat. Why should we buy the Amico?
Because it's bringing fun back into the living room, play together with your friends and your family. And that's something that we are missing in the 80s or 90s. And that's the reason why you should buy an Amico, because that's really something, we are all missing. And by the way, I want to add one thing to History Line, because at that time I was editor-in-chief of Amiga Games, and we loved History Line and didn't ever have a problem with that, because for us it was like from the company that brought Battle Isle. So we loved History Line, but that's media is always a little bit different compared to sales stuff. So I think Blue Byte at that time was the most ambitious company in Germany, and you did so many things for the first time. First console game, that you did the Super Nintendo game. You really tried to expand the business, and so I think that's really we all learn our lessons, and we are here right now, which is a great thing. And so I'm going to have to leave now, because I'm on a vacation, and back there my whole family is sleeping, and my son was just complaining. So I think it was great to see you guys, and hope to join you next time again.
Thanks for joining us, and hope to hear from you. Thanks.
Schönen Urlaub noch. Ciao.
Ciao.
Tschüss.
Ciao. Danke. Ciao, Jungs.
Robin found something. He's running through our location, and what is that?
Yeah, I found something very German too, Catan, and there's a Catan Kartenspiel, so the card game. Someone in this round has made something in it.
Yeah, it's quite a very interesting story. We have this game. We got the license from Klaus Teuber, the inventor of Catan, and the game should be done by another team before, but they changed to us. They got in trouble there. And it was something really interesting there is that Klaus Teuber originally built a computer AI in Excel. And he built 26 Excel sheets, and it was a very good playing artificial intelligence which he implemented there. And he said, hey, please look at this, and I've never seen something before, an artificial intelligence programmed in Excel with all the cards in it. And he said, maybe we can use this. And we thought, hey, was the first time I realized that all the intelligence of the game is in the cards and in the knowledge of the inventor of Klaus Teuber. And so we, maybe I can say this now, we reprogrammed an Excel simulator inside this game. And we loaded these Excel sheets so Klaus Teuber could work on his AI. And he was very happy to do this. He could directly program, but he just imported the Excel sheets. It's quite a very interesting thing we did there. And yeah, it's kind of Catan, the card game. Very, very good game. I like it a lot, a little bit more than the classic board game. It's a very fascinating for two players. And it was an online part, which I brought in there with the founding of my own company in '96, which we did the Tincat engine the first time over here. And we could play it over the internet, yeah. Long time ago.
some people remember a show in television. It was called Computertreff in the Bavarian TV.
Yeah.
Someone responsible for that?
Yeah.
How did that happen? And can you tell us something about that times?
Oh yes. It also has a history related to ports of call, because at that time, as I told, I did a television series for the North German television together with Martin Ulrich, and this was broadcasted in NDR and MDR and in Bavarian television. And the Bavarian television is now the interesting part, where one of the editors say, why not making an extra computer show for telling about what was going on this NDR show, what do we present there and enhance it. And so Computertreff was founded at the same time when the NDR television series on the Rolf Klein computer, this is what's called NDR Klein computer, which we built there for education. And at the same time we make Computertreff to show the people some details of the computer and also a little bit magazine-like. And yeah, we did this Computertreff, I think around nearly 20 years together with the VDR, which is the West German television, which from Buck and Rudolf made also a TV series on computers at that time. And so we had that Computertreff and going on exhibitions for CeBIT and so on, showing new stuff and also new computers coming up at that time. Was really very interesting time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many Klein computers do you own still today?
Oh, I have some still laying around. The one is with the 8020 processor. This was the most sophisticated. We did some other national semiconductor computer, which never came out there. And the PC variant with the 286 was the last one on the NDR Klein computer series, which comes out at that time. There's also some computer clubs still around, building devices around the NDR Klein computer with modern parts, because it's very difficult now to get the old parts at sometimes. The graphic processor we used at that time is very difficult to get at the moment, but there are FPGA which you can reprogram now, everything like simulation. And so the NDR Klein computer still is alive. But I think in Germany there are a lot of computers still in some places from people, or even they do some new stuff with that in the retro part. Yes. And we did a flight simulator at that time. This was quite funny.
I do have a question about some covers on magazines, which disturbed me very much in my youth. It was a further youth. How in hell do somebody do? I cannot go much further with the upper one. How in okay, you know what I'm asking. Joe, tell us about covers on magazines.
You can show the second one too, because we changed something on it. The original picture was not
more details,
and you cannot put it for sale, you know.
Do you remember a game from they were a Spanish company called Dynamic, I think. They had a game called Game Over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the cover art was a woman.
That would have fitted the PC Action magazine.
Yeah. And they had to change the graphics, or they had to put something across the woman so you couldn't see her nipple. And they were different times. And
so let's check some other covers here. We can. Okay, let's start. Women nearly naked. Sorry, it's Kane. Kane is okay. Kane is okay. Sorry, this one is not nude, but again. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sex sells.
Sex sells. That's right, because once we put Schumacher on the cover, and it was a worst-selling issue ever.
it's a very not dangerous, but it's a delicate topic. Back in the 80s, I don't think I would be wrong in saying that games were predominantly male. It was a male territory. You look at all the games and it was all shooting and killing and death and blah. Now games have broadened. There are now more female protagonists in games. You look at The Last of Us 1 and 2, Tomb Raider, Horizon Zero Dawn, etc., etc., etc. And there's more female protagonists in games, but it was a male-dominated industry.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
Ralf
the guys that I work with. I mean, I was a lot older than all the developers, than a lot of the coders and artists.
I don't want to interrupt you, sorry, but Ralf has to leave us. Thanks for being here, and great success with your new projects. And call us again whenever you want.
Most of you again, some of you for the first time.
Bye.
Sorry,
ciao.
Believe it or not, I have to jump into a call with the United States. So yeah, no worries for me.
And a lot of people are asking how long this will last here, and we said it's open end. We stream here at the Gamescom channel till 2 o'clock, no problem. And after that, we go on Twitch. We have all time we want to have, no problem.
I may return tonight or tomorrow. We'll see.
No
about
problem.
That, but
of course you can.
pleasure.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, Ralf.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean,
I think if I buy something, say something about the PC Action covers. At that time, I was working at PC Joker magazine and Amiga Joker magazine, and I think PC Action's unique selling point was actually the covers and the humor within the magazine. I mean, they had probably like the funniest readers, males section of all the German magazines, and they wrote like they did not take the whole thing too serious. You know, I mean, they did like reviews and stuff and everything, but it was funny to read. And I think maybe that's one of their unique selling points. So it was like they have girls on the covers, they have lots of humor in the magazine, whereas some other magazines, like for example GameStar or our own PC Joker, they try to always also find a unique way of approaching the readers and finding a target audience group. And some other magazines try to sell their stuff by putting a CD-ROM on the cover and putting a full game onto the CD-ROM. So you would actually need.
Well, you have to find a unique selling point, because PC Games, our sister magazine, it was a bigger one, always the bigger one, and they got always more money than PC Action, and we have to find something that they didn't have. So we tried this lifestyle thing, you know, with girls on the cover, and like FHM, this man's magazine those days. Yeah.
There's
in the 80s in England, we never had girls on the covers of the mags. The two biggest magazines in England were Crash and Zap, and there was one guy that painted the covers for each magazine, Oliver Frey, and he is currently painting his final cover, which is Crash number 101, and then that's it, he's finished. But they always represented a game that was being reviewed inside the magazine. And now here in the UK, Oliver will go to retro conventions and he will sell prints of his artwork, and and the guys basically, it's like they've got the cover of the magazine but without all the text. They've just got the image, and you just, you know, these guys are like 40, 50, sometimes 60 years of age, and there they are, and they're like, oh man, this is my childhood. But Europe was, you see, you tend to forget England is very Victorian. You guys are very open and free about sexuality. We're all terribly in a box here in England. So back in the 70s and 80s, sex was like, oh no, oh my God, oh, you can't do that.
But I remember the Barbarian covers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I personally...
Once Pandora's box opened in England, well, then we went crazy. But we've been so Victorian for so long.
Yeah, I personally like the painted covers more than the girls' covers.
Yeah.
So I was really glad when we changed from girls' covers back to rendered artworks. It was much more appealing for me.
Well, do you know the magazine Edge?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I bought it from #1, and then for like 2, maybe 5 years, and then I stopped because I just thought all it is it's a coffee table magazine.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it might as well be Good Homes and Gardens. It every time I opened it, I just thought, I don't even know what game I'm looking at. They just look the same every single month. And I think now to really grab the gamers, you've got to do something very, very special, especially with magazines.
A proper special. There was one thing the PC Action was famous for.
Cool.
Oh my God.
Why a cooking show on the DVD?
Yeah,
what's wrong with that?
It was our cooking show. We did every month. We did a new episode, and we sell 2 DVDs of it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but if you're doing something that nobody else does, then that's a win.
It was so funny. I really love it. I still love it. Yeah.
Cool.
I even tried to cook something out of these videos. They are really
it's possible.
Working. It's working.
I wanted to say something really quick because as we were talking about covers, I noticed at Richard Löwenstein's background there is actually an Amiga Joker cover, which also features scantily clad, I would say, woman on it. So
exactly.
All the magazines did this back in the day, or it was not just maybe that one magazine.
No, of course not. No, but we did not take pictures of real girls or real ladies dressed into a game themed. Well, nowadays you would call it like cosplay.
I see.
It is a good decision, Richard.
It was a drawing instead of, it was a painting instead of a photo. Oh, I see.
Exactly.
Want some evidence? Here, some.
Yeah. We had the Kandimiroglu brothers, and they painted pictures which sometimes had something to do with what we did in the magazine, and sometimes they were just looking nice. And there was no connection whatever to what we did in the magazine. And what you see in the background, right behind me, is I asked the team of the Amiga Joker magazine like 3 years ago if they would find it fun if we came back together and produce another like a comeback issue just for the fun of it, and also because there was a big Amiga community event called Amiga 32 in Germany in September 2017, I think, or maybe October, something like that. And together with the guys who organized the event, we thought, hey, wouldn't it be nice to to have a magazine, a new Amiga Joker magazine. Amiga Joker, by the way, who does not know, was the best-selling Amiga games related magazine in Germany by the time. And some of the ex-members said, okay, why not write some reviews or do anything which the community might like. And that's how we decided to kind of relaunch Amiga Joker for one issue, and released it in October 2017. And it was such a big success that we decided to do the same thing again in the end of 2019. And that's how and actually this cover, which you can see here, it shows an almost kind of naked lady only because this was the only artwork which Ogan Kandemiroglu had not used by now, because he doesn't paint anymore. And I still wanted to have a real Kandemiroglu cover on the Amiga Joker, because that's what our readers really liked. Yeah, they wanted a Kandemiroglu cover. And Ogan only had one painting left, which was not used on the Joker magazine. And it has this lady on the front. And I had I put lots of hours into thinking if this was possible in the year 2019 to release such a cover, because it's so 1991. Almost not possible anymore to release something like that, but we did it. And
right,
yeah. What should I do
here in the UK? I think it was 2 years ago. A friend of mine, like I said, back in the 80s, the big magazines were Crash and Zap, Spectrum and Commodore 64, and they are back. They are back.
Really?
Oh yeah. Not every month, but I think every quarter.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And my friend Chris Wilkins, he does a Kickstarter, and his latest Kickstarter got, I think it was 500,000.
For what?
For printing.
Really? 500,000?
Yeah.
Richard, the thinking.
Because
money.
This is it, Richard. The
Really?
fans
Sorry
are
for interrupting.
The fan base is still there.
Bernhard wants to leave us, and thanks a lot for joining us. And yeah, till tomorrow, I would say.
Yeah, thank you for. Nice to talk to you. Have a night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Bye.
And sorry, there's one question from the chat. Then we can talk again about the newspapers.
Okay.
Because one person in the chat did not understand something with, again, ports of call.
Okay.
One second. I have to find the correct thing. Here it is. Some versions of ports of call had a life-size sound enhancer. What exactly did it do? Is someone asking?
Okay, this is great, because I just found the page with a life-size adapter here in the book. It's a small device which you can plug into the PC at the parallel port to get a sound output. We did develop this at the time. Amiga had sound. This was one of the greatest features, but the PCs still needed some sound cards. Sound was not built into the PCs at that time. So we decided to build our own very simple sound adapter. Let me see whether I can make a little bit larger schematic here. This is the schematic. The whole schematic consists of an R2R resistor networks, a wholly passive. There's no transistor, nothing inside. And this can be connected to the parallel port of the PC. And then you get the sound output of all sound files of ports of call. This was called the life-size adapter. Did some assembly language here for the PC to implement that sound, which was sampled, I think, with 8 kilohertz sampled, but the sound has only bandwidth of 4 kilohertz. So that was some nice feature. And then we get our own sound device bundled into the package, so the people get the sound adapter together with the ports of call when they got the PC version of ports of call.
But the sound quality was not on Amiga level.
No, of course not. The Amiga level was much higher, of course, because there was a hardware-built sound device. But for the game, of course, we had some more sound and a little bit instruments and so on. It was very simple. We don't have a music or anything like that in the ports of call. Crash sounds for the ship when you crash to the wall and so on. And so this was sufficient at that time. Yeah.
And how expensive was it, this expander?
It was bundled together with the software. I don't know what the value of the software was in German, 20 D-Marks, 30 D-Marks, something like that. Just like the other games, it was some dollars only. It's very, very simple device because only some resistors inside a small printed circuit board, and that was not that expensive.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you design that adapter?
Yeah, I did design it. Yes. Because it's a simple DA converter. Yeah.
Yeah, because we see a lot of oscilloscope stuff and technique behind you. So I was wondering.
That's right. And a little bit, if I switch here over, there's a lot of technical stuff here. I did a lot of.
Looks like you got a flux compensator somewhere hidden.
Yeah, well, this is on the other side.
Oh my God.
Is this your laboratory or is it your living room?
Yeah, it's a more living room than laboratories sometimes. Yeah, both. And I'm doing a lot of high frequency stuff. Currently, also working as a consultant for the Luft- and Raumfahrttechnik, having now 2 CubeSats in orbit. Two of my PCB boards are traveling around the Earth at the moment. It's some transmitters and receivers. So I'm doing.
This is for the new GPS, the European version of GPS. Is that it?
No. It's a research project. Yes, okay. Research project for grabbing data or measurement of solar. So it's a student project. The students have to learn how satellites are working. The CubeSats are very small satellites, like this, 10 times 10 times 10, and they can build some small stuff inside, some measurement devices and so on.
Cool.
Amazing, thanks.
Yes, I also was totally fascinated from your background, all those stuff. It's unbelievable. And how long did it take to collect all those or to buy these things? It's really overwhelming for me.
My whole life, yes.
Yeah.
Starting, my father had an electronic company, so I started, let's say, at around 4. It was helpful. He built oscilloscopes at that time. It's a very long time ago. And yeah, so you work with that. That's the electronic background always combined with software. And at early times with processors, like they come in the first machines before the 68000 times or 80 times or Z80 or 8080. It was the first processors I worked with. You have to do a lot of machine coding there at the time, doing your own assembly. Yeah.
I have another game if you want to talk a bit about Schleichfahrt.
Okay.
If you mind.
I think it was an early 3DFX game, wasn't it?
You want me to give you a rundown? It's
just a short one.
Yeah. I think it was absolute state of the art at the time. It wasn't developed in-house, it was an external team. And probably towards, I don't know, 96, 97, you can look on the box. I'm kind of fuzzy on the details there. But the software 3D engine was just unbelievable, and everything is underwater, so you can cheat a little bit with distance and the level of detail and things like that, but you don't know.
Had a name. The engine had a name, hadn't it?
I mean,
you don't remember? It was a funny name. I don't remember. Perhaps someone in the audience know the name from the engine. It had such a curious name. I don't remember. I had a look.
It was its own thing. They made other games based on the engine later on, but it was fast too. And So you know, with the way they with the being underwater, I mean, it just looked, if you would, you know, get into a dark room and, you know, turn the speakers up and just dim the lights down, and you would play the game. I mean, it was claustrophobic. It was really good for its time. I mean, it's, you know, we were talking about going from text adventures to simple, you know, 8x8 pixel graphics to 3D graphics. There still wasn't enough detail in Archimedean Dynasty or Schleichfahrt that your brain wouldn't take over, you know, fill in some of the gaps. You still had to fill in some of the gaps. And sound and music also makes a huge difference. Play it without sound and music, it's boring. So the Massive, I think, was the developer, and I think we started working with them. Also, they had a vertical slice, and it was just, we did a lot of work. We did a lot of PR and marketing at the time. We actually converted the entire basement of our office building into a submarine kind of environment. So we would bring in journalists, and then we would take them through the elevator directly straight into the basement. And I have a jumpsuit somewhere here with the Archimedean Dynasty or Schleichfahrt logo on the back, and everybody had to wear these suits, and we would take them around and we would show them, you know, the game on some of the workstations. Unfortunately, it didn't really reflect in the sales after all. And I think that was mostly due because the big guys were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Smaller guys were disappearing, and the middle field was kind of struggling, where I would probably count us into the middle field. So it didn't really, unfortunately, it didn't really do that well. It didn't do bad, but it could have done, I think, a lot better in retail.
But look at this votings. It was full of gold, super, perfect, gold player.
And that made it even more.
Yeah. Look, there's
surprising.
even a Joker on it.
I'm just reading the review we did because I do not remember the details.
Yeah, it's a PC Action logo on it. I see it.
PC Action Gold.
The box was designed in the States, the 3-dimensional box. I mean, we put everything into it. It was embossed. It was 3D. I mean, everything we could possibly do to make it a standout, you know, haptic.
It has a cool map in it, I think.
Astonished. Steve Jobs would say gorgeous artwork, but I don't know what went wrong. I mean, it was really getting difficult to get into retail. I think this must have been around the time when I bought my first $10,000 T-shirt and mug at the Comp USA national convention. You pay $10,000 to go to the retail convention. They give you a mug, they give you a T-shirt, and then you may be able to talk to their salespeople. And we were just, everybody in the industry was just spending. And if you got lucky, you would make your money back. But I think eventually, we barely broke even on the game, which was really a shame.
A shame, of course. And then they moved over and they made the Equinox as
yeah.
And I think even the second part of Equinox 2, which was not so well, but
Massive. Best shooter.
Really, yeah, but the one who made the music is not here right now, so I have it for later days, for tomorrow. Yeah.
I think this game, this Schleichfahrt game, I played this too, and I remember it was kind of, you could describe it a bit as like an Elite, but instead of space, you were underwater. I think you said something similar. And I think also the graphics on PC were so impressive. I mean, I had an old Cyrix PC back then with like 130 megahertz or so, and it went perfectly smooth, unbelievable. No 3D graphics card required, just software rendering. It was really an amazing piece of work.
There was a patch for 3DFX, and it looked incredible with it.
But even without it was even with software rendering, it was absolutely stunning. I think it's funny, personally. I think it's funny how these titles were translated, because Schleichfahrt is such a cool title, and Archimedean Dynasty is okay. It's not bad, but
I usually hear it the other way around, that the name Schleichfahrt sucks.
Oh no, I think the opposite.
And
Yeah, and Siedler also, was not the settlers, but was serfs. Very strange.
Schleichfahrt is actually something that I came up with because we were getting close to the deadline and we had to have a title. And I don't think the development team liked it very much. But I wanted, I don't know, something mysterious in there. I wanted something German in there. Yeah. I don't know, we can have a long discussion about how we're treating our language. And that we're slowly basically forgetting all about German and putting English words in where we used to put German words. So I wanted something German for the German-speaking territories. And I think the name Achaemenian Dynasty, that suggestion came out of the UK. Overly complicated a little bit, Achaemenian Dynasty. Okay, yeah, well. Again, you need to have a little bit of education, to know the Archimedean principle. You put a body or a mass into water, a volume, then it pushes the water out. So it's like, okay, but at some point in time, you have to rely on the advisors, the people that tell you this is what we need to do. You can't make all the decisions yourself. So I don't know.
It's much better than Divine Divinity.
What?
You mean the game Divine Divinity? It sounds awkward at first, yeah, but honestly, personally, I don't think that name is so bad because once you hear it, you'll never forget it. But yeah, it's a matter of taste, I guess.
I have another game. Yes. Sorry. Then we have one of, I think, your last games of Blue Bytes. This one, Extreme Assault. It was an Extreme Assault, sometimes on the speed, but it's a cool game. I think it was. I see some. I see a Joker again. No, did I see a Joker? Yeah, I see a Joker. The Joker has changed. The Joker is now in the middle of the.
Yeah, that was my review. I loved the game.
Yeah, it started off as a simulation. I've always been a huge flight simulation fan, and we were planning, or I was planning on making a helicopter flight simulation. Search and rescue, that sort of stuff. Nothing military. And I remember going to one of the ADAC, the AAA locations where they have one of their yellow helicopters, and we visited with a team. But in the end, it was just, we realized if we really want to make this a simulation, a good simulation, we just won't have the capital to really do this. So we used the technology to turn it into an action game. And again, the marketing team, PR team, they did a great job. They were really behind it, and it did okay. It did okay. I mean, our own in-house engine, and today you use Unity and Unreal Engine, and I don't know what have you. Back in the day, you had to write your own engine from scratch, so that you had some control over it, but it wasn't cheap because you had to have one or two people on your staff that would do exclusively 3D engine stuff. Now
Robin.
Yeah.
Do you have a picture of the best game in this from Thomas? Of Incubation. I love this game so much.
I may have a look. Just give me a second.
Yes.
Yeah, and from the chat.
While he does that, if I'm part of a group that's developing a C64/Mega 65 C65/Mega 65 computer in FPGA, and they would kill me if I don't mention the game, and it fits right into the topic here. It's a retro computer. It's the C65 that in 1992 was supposed to replace the Commodore 64, but Commodore went bankrupt before they could deliver the machine. There are some original machines out there. They are between, I don't know, 25 and 30,000 euros per machine. And these guys, Mega 65 people, they decided 5, 6, 7 years ago to basically redo the whole thing in FPGA. And they asked me to help them out a little bit. And this is it. So this is one you need for your collection there, my friends, when it's done. This is a prototype. It's machine number 19. And it's basically C64. It's a C65, and the Mega 65. It's more like an Amiga, really, but it has a floppy disk drive. It has a keyboard with click. It has Ethernet. It has HDMI. It has a user port. You name it. This thing is going to rock. And so I really wanted to plug this. Sorry for that, but I think it's something that you're probably gonna be interested in the future when the first machines come out, probably sometime next year or so. It's all open source. It's all volunteer. There's no company behind it. There's no money in it for me or for anybody else. So I'm just presenting this to you. And if you want to check out more, then go to the mega65.org, I think it is, website, and it tells you more about it. So, but this thing is amazing. I had it hooked up to a monitor, and it's just great. You turn it on, basic prompt, and you can start programming immediately. And I think that's another thing about the retro computing. And I really want my son to kind of get into this, so that he knows what the basics are. How where do you start with a computer? Do you start with Microsoft.NET 3.5 or with BASIC, right? So I think not just the Mega 65, but the Spectrum Plus and all the other machines. It's great that they're out there because they take us back to the 80s, mostly to the 80s, where you could just turn the bloody thing on. You had a manual. You could type in some lines of code, and you had a game. So and that's what's missing today a little bit, I think.
Thomas, did you try to code something for this machine already?
Not yet. I'm working on a new game, right? And I'm trying to prototype it. And I'm running into walls. I'm running into, I'm looking at Unreal Engine. I'm looking at Unity. I'm looking at Godot. I'm looking at the Yo-Yo Game Maker. And I'm thinking, if I could write that prototype on this Mega 65 faster than all the other development environments out there, because I have to learn all the idiosyncrasies of, Unity and Unreal Engine and all the ballast. And then it spits out a, 200 megabyte file. I'm pretty sure that I could write a prototype on this thing. To answer your question directly, no, I have not. I'm waiting for them to tell me how to tie it into Visual Studio Code. But you can use cross assemblers. There's an emulator out there right now that you can program. So I hope to get some time to, it's, like I said, it's and there may be an Amiga core in development as well, so rumors.
Okay. So do you know, is it like capable of the things that the original C65 would have been able to do, or are there some enhancements in there which make it go faster, have more sprites, stuff like that?
So I think when it first boots and you don't hold down any control, alt keys, whatever, it goes into the Mega 65 mode. I don't know. It may change. You can then go into the C64 mode. You can run games 100%. You can hook up a floppy, a 1541, right? I think it was. You can hook up original mouse. You can hook up joysticks. I had to made my own joystick because you can't get these things anymore with a 9-pin, right? So, but that's the fun part of it.
Sorry, one first interruption. Richard, your handy is zittering all the time. It would be great to put it some centimeters away from something, because your picture is flickering. And yeah, that's what I mean. And we had to say goodbye to Mr. Klein. We see you tomorrow. Thanks a lot for joining us. It was a great pleasure for us. Thanks again.
Ja, bye-bye. Ja.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Morgen in Deutsch.
Yeah, tomorrow then. Or today.
Ich habe noch das geforderte. Sorry, I'm totally German now. I found the right version. This one is the incubation in the Battle Alp Phase 4.
Yes.
It was an incredible game. I liked it more than XCOM.
One of the easiest projects I had the privilege to produce in-house, because the programmer who approached me, an in-house guy, and that usually doesn't happen, basically came to me with the idea to use Battle Island to do a turn-based, a tactical game like XCOM. And he gave me a complete presentation, and I'm like, wow, this never happens, right? People always complain that they can't work on the projects they want to work on, but when you ask him, it's like, well, I don't really know. So this guy, he did that, and pretty much 12 months later, or maybe 15 months later, there was a game, and it was just immensely enjoyable to play. I thought it fit into the Battle Isle universe, and I didn't want to start from scratch. I wanted to use the franchise. I wanted to use the popularity of the name, which in hindsight, may have been a problem down the road. But it's one of our better games. There were clearly, good gameplay, deep gameplay, good replayability, decent graphics, and it was pretty good. It was awesome.
I think there's something to be said about coding for these machines. That's also what I like about Richard Löwenstein's games, because you don't have to play them on an Amiga. Because of all the emulators we have, once a game like this is released and you can buy it and download it, I bought it as the download version, and now I can play it on all my machines because there's Amiga emulators for all of them. So in some sense, by coding for the old machine, you're making it available for a whole range of machines. I have Amiga emulators on everything. So that is really something to think about, right? So that's really nice.
The nice thing about it is that some people have even tried to run reshooter on the PSP. And it seems like the PSP is not capable of running an emulator, running reshooter fast enough to make it work with the 50 hertz frame rate that the game usually tries to run in. And so you have to switch away some parallax layers or stuff like that. So that's quite amazing that an Amiga can do more than a PSP.
So I am actually involved in the Amiga emulator homebrew for the Vita, and even the Vita is a little bit too slow to run it in full 50 FPS. Okay. But the Nintendo Switch has plenty of power for it. So the homebrew emulator, the Amiga emulator on the Switch, it does run it just fine. In principle, if I were you, I would. This is of course your decision, but you could, in principle, release it on something like the Switch if you can bundle it with an emulator in some way, right? So
do it, Richard.
No,
that would be so cool.
I would love to do that. The problem is that there are some copyright issues with the Kickstart operating system, and that makes it really hard to bundle something with an Amiga emulator officially.
Yeah.
I know there's a workaround like the Aros OS, which is, I'm not sure about the copyright issues involved with that. And I'm also not sure if Nintendo would like to see an emulation running an Amiga game on the Switch console. But I love the idea. If there was an expert who can consult me with stuff like that, who can tell me, okay, this is the way it works to make this game run on the Switch officially and legally, and also maybe release it on officially, then I would be happy to do that. Also to enhance the game, to make use of some of the Switch features. But right now, I love the idea. I love the Switch console, but I have no idea how to really do it.
I wouldn't know either, because I'm only involved in these homebrew projects, and of course it's all requiring like modified consoles and things. But also, other machines too. Raspberry Pi, for example, if you buy it, you can probably run it on the emulator on a Raspberry Pi right now. So I think my main point was just, if you code games for the old machines, you're making them basically widely available, as long as you give people the option to download it as a ROM file or disk file, and not just physical.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one quick question, because I bought Reshoot R and I played through it, and I love playing through it because it is quite playable. It's not impossible. Yes, I finished it a week ago, so
okay,
a few weeks ago. I played it seriously on Mr. FPGA, basically Minimic Amiga core, and without the lag and everything, it was quite doable.
Sorry,
and then
Arne,
I was
sorry,
yes.
Arne, I have to interrupt you. We play it every Thursday, and nearly nobody,
you played all the time.
Nearly nobody plays through the game. We have one visitor who played it 2 times through the whole game, and then I never got the chance to see more than level 2. And
really?
You played it one evening, Arne, and told me it's an easy game.
I played through it on my second try. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, I did. But
man. Okay.
Maybe it was luck. I don't know. I should try again because maybe it was luck.
You should playtest my next game.
But anyways, what I wanted to say is what happened is after I played through it, I got the online code, and I'm on number 45 or so on your high score list online.
Yeah.
Which I think is a brilliant idea to make a game for an old machine, but still have this modern functionality of comparing scores like that. But I wonder, do you remove the cheaters on that? I mean, is it really true that I'm place 45, or maybe there are some cheaters that have impossible scores on there? Do you know?
I do know there are some impossible scores on the high score table, but I'm not really sure how to cope with that, because I know that if I delete 1 or 2 scores manually, then I get heavy backfire from the community, or it could happen at least, and it's very difficult.
You could add a symbol.
I would say that if you happen to play through the game on your second go, which I can hardly believe, but if you say it, then you must consider yourself to be one of the top 10 best shoot 'em up players on the Amiga ever. So that's that's kind of official. So let me tell you this.
I don't think the game is so hard.
Well, Arne, sorry, Arne. Once again, every Thursday when we play on our stream the game, if there is an action game, you played it through, you play it very well, you are one of the best players we ever saw in our streams. That's really the truth.
Yeah, but let me tell you this, I'm learning, and again with Retrokompott I learned 2 things. First of all, I learned that if I again implement the idea of printing a code on screen, which the player can then type into a website in order to get onto the high score table, a global high score ranking. And I will do this again. Actually, the high score rankings website already works for Reshoot Proxima, but I'm using a different kind of code this time, which is, I'd be surprised if someone really can gets to know how the code works, and should really disable any kind of cheating this time. Also, there will be 2 difficulty settings this time, and that should make life much harder for you.
That's excellent too.
Yeah, the thing is that with Reshoot it was probably too easy for the real expert players to dodge the bullets, because they always tended to target the player's position at the time, whereas in the new Proxima game, the higher difficulty setting does not target the position of the ship at the current time, but in the future. So it tries to learn where you move, and then shoots at the position which you are probably having in like 10 or 20 frames, and that should make life much harder for you, because the screen where the place where you want to move your ship to will already be occupied with bullets, and that's kind of a totally new challenge for you. I hope that's the plan. We will see if it works out.
I think I will love it. I mean, I should also mention that the game starts to give you continues after level 2 or so, and I used plenty of those continues.
Okay.
So in that sense, I didn't play through in a single go.
Yeah.
But after level 3, when I died at the boss, it would give me a continue to start back, and I think I had 2 or 3 of those. So I think you made the game quite fair.
Yeah. Did you like the idea of getting continues after stage 2?
I think I really liked it. Although it caused me to not play the first level so much, right? Because once I finished it and the second one, then I could just continue. But in general, I like it. I think it was very fair. Yeah. It was made in a more fair way than some of the older games,
Yeah, and that's
I don't like the idea that you can put your name in the high score table if you have used continues.
But the continues reset the score, so I think that's why I'm so low.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you continue on level 4,
Yeah.
I don't think you get more score. It resets your score either to 0 or to the previous value. I think it resets it to 0. So
I think it's 0.
It
If
is
you
fair.
use a continue, the score is 0, and that's why probably not that high. If you play
Yes.
through
In a single go, I think maybe. Yeah.
It could be much higher. Yeah.
I think I think that's really done in a fair way. I love it. I'm not a fan of cheating. I hate using trainers or cheats because then everything becomes too easy and you're not really beating it, right? Even save states is something I don't like. So in our video Stammtisch in the podcast, we always have these discussions. Some people use save states, some people use cheats, and I like to stay away from that. And I found your game especially fair. I think it was really fun.
Yeah,
that's really good to know. Thank you.
I have to say, Anne is some kind of monster. He's very, very good at learning things. So he plays reshoot R, learned the formations of the enemies, and with a second go, he remembers all of them. It's really unbelievable, and he's one of the few players who really do not cheat in any game at all. He's trying to learn it, but there's one thing that Arne hates, and these are mazes.
But that's more about adventure games, when there's mazes in the game.
Well, I can put in mazes too. Why not?
No, please don't put mazes in your shoot 'em up game. That would be terrible.
Only Geschwurbel of Oliver would do it. That's the best part.
Yes, for me, Reshoot R was a really hard game to finish, and I had to use the save states. Thank you again, Richard, for your comment under my long play on YouTube. The one you commented is one of my long plays from Reshoot R, but I had to use save states to complete it. But I have to say the 5th level, was easier than some of the levels before. I don't know why. I was somehow irritated with these parallax effects, so these 3D scrollers, these line scroller, forcing into the background, hiding your spaceship and your bullets. That was some kind of hard, but I found it easier to complete the last level than the levels before.
I think it's a matter of taste. In fact, you're right. I decided in order to have a good, cool video effect, I wanted to have some stuff going on in the foreground, and that means that you sometimes, for a number of 2 or 3 frames, you cannot see the player ship, and that means some people like the idea, some people rather hate it, but I think it looks cool anyway. But I decided, because it's such a difficult decision to keep that video effect, but still to keep the game feel fair and fresh, I needed to lower the difficulty level. Also, there are some mazes in the 5th level, in the 5th stage, and I also thought this is a very new element in this game, and I cannot make the stage too hard, because it would be too off-putting dying in the 5th stage because of the video priority stuff that is going on, also because of the new element of some kind of maze-like things, and that's why I decided not to make it too hard. And also, I think there's no reason to make the last level the hardest and hardest. I think I do know that Nintendo does it all the time. Like I don't know how many times I died in Super Metroid at the last boss fight, but with my game, I decided it would be nice to really get kind of reward for the fight you already have made, and and also I don't think that the boss fights were too easy, right? Or were they?
There were a lot of bullets in the boss fights that you really have to dodge carefully. And I remember you did something also very interesting. In one of the boss fights, you put some kind of object in the foreground, which during the boss fights hides some of the bullets. So the player has to remember the bullet paths a little bit, because it will be hidden by this foreground object. I thought that was a very good idea and very original idea, really. So I find it always interesting to look in games for new original ideas, and I think that was one of them.
I'm glad you like it. Thank you for the kind words.
Yes, and
thank you for being here.
There's one boss fight. There's one boss fight you have to know, that you stop shooting. I'm using autofire to play through Reshoot R, but with one boss, I remember, I don't know the exact level, I believe it's level 3 or so. If you repeatedly shoot and do not stop to shoot at the boss, you are getting killed by many, many bullets. But if you stop shooting at him at specific times, he stops shooting at you.
Must be a bug.
Okay.
I think.
Interesting.
Richard, one last question. Will there be a bundle with all 3 reshoot games?
I'm thinking about it actually. Yes, but probably not at the time that Proxima 3 is released, probably a bit later. I'm thinking about that because the first reshoot game tends to get slapped for a number of reasons, because there are 1 or 2 bugs in it and because it's too hard really. And I'm thinking about redoing the first game with the existing graphics, maybe a new music, because the first reshoot game has like a like chiptune audio, which I personally love it, but I do know that many Amiga gamers don't like it. So maybe I'd replace it with a more Amiga-like thing, and such a bundle could happen. But if it happens, it will be a modified reshoot version, and and probably 1 or 2 bugs which are still in reshoot will be killed, and then Proxima 3. But that, we're talking about 2024 or something, so that's a long. Also, I'm thinking about Mega Drive conversions because I do love the Mega Drive console too, and I think that reshoot and also maybe Proxima 3. But reshoot at least would really, I think they should be well playable on the Mega Drive console too.
So I'm now intervening. It's too long. You talk too much about reshooter. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
It's impossible.
I was asked. I was asked.
All the fanboys
it was
hanging
all
around.
my fault.
It
was my fault.
Let's talk about, again, being a publisher. Thomas, we have this type of software here, and I was so proud having a version which is still in foil, totally new. I'm pretty sure that the guy that who bought it has read some tests about it and perhaps might have been not so interesting in open it.
Yeah, I have about 20,000 of those in my garage. So if you want one, just let me know.
The story would be interesting. I'm still looking for the F13 key.
I don't brag about our successes, and what I can tell you, and our failures, I admit our failures are my failures. The story behind this it's not a game, all right. It's hyper casual, and we went completely outside of our customer profile with this game, and it was initiated by the American company, by the Incorporated here in Austin. They wanted to do something hyper casual. There were all sorts of games. This was 1999. I just looked it up, and they were selling like hotcakes. Easy, I don't know, 6 weeks development time, maybe 3 months at tops, and priced accordingly. You sell these things. I think we had a mouse mat. I don't know if that was part of the bundle or something, but it's basically a screensaver, a puzzle game, and that was it, right? Probably under a different label, it would have been okay, but it didn't work. Certainly didn't work under the Blue Byte label. So the name obviously pulls, at least here in the United States, and we weren't really surprised that it didn't do well in Europe, but we really hoped that it would do well for us here in the States. Unfortunately, Mr. King had an accident in June of 1999 where he was incapacitated for months.
He was driven over by a drunk woman, I think. Something while having a walk.
Right. And I just read up on the article, Wikipedia, thank you. So at any rate, we got a message from his either attorney or wife, or I don't know, that he can't fulfill his contractual obligations. I don't know if he was supposed to be at a trade show or something, but we had basically developed the game. We had a contract with him, but there were some obligations that he just couldn't fulfill, and that killed it for us here in the US. The reason why it didn't do well in the rest of the world is it was probably, well, poorly communicated what it was. It wasn't the game at all. It was a screensaver, and I don't even know if there's any game in there or if it's just a bunch of background pictures and screensavers. And that it was published under Blue Byte. You know, people were expecting Battle Island, Settlers, and you know, those kind of things.
I remember the box and got totally excited to see a new Blue Byte game, and it says story, Stephen King mini story, mini games. Try with no bathing allowed. Totengräber, Stilvoll, und build. Yeah, it's more like a mini game within a very big box.
Like I said, we weren't the only one making these kind of products. There were a ton of them out there. They would only, I mean, if you put, you know, the Disney label on it, everything sells. And Stephen King's label, I think it would have sold as well, but we just couldn't get the PR going because of his accident. So at any rate, it wasn't a good decision to get into it. Like I said, under a different label, I think it may have worked, but the worst part of it was that it distracted us from other things, which we should have focused on, right? But these are the things you learn over time. We got distracted with a lot of things, you know, different kind of games, and we did we started doing Dragon's Lair, basically a revive of the Dragon's Lair arcade machine. We didn't finish it because Ubisoft bought me out, or I sold to Ubisoft before that could happen. That may have been another distraction, I don't know. But the American market was just so different that you had to almost have a second set of product portfolios, separate product portfolio for North America. And like I said, the worst thing of all of these things that we tried there were the distraction they gave us. What else are you digging up now?
No, I had a look to see the incubation mission, but I didn't find it, so I just leave you alone because I was very I did not like it, seeing that Blue Byte is losing its own private life and moving over to Ubi, which has done so much bad games in the years before. So I was not crying, but it was not good.
Kurzer short break. In our chat, there were questions to Joe. He wants to leave in some minutes. Please ask him the question if you want. Who was it? Michael.
Yes. You seem quite unhappy with the Turrican news from yesterday. I just read on Twitter.
Yeah, I was unhappy with the opening nightlife, that the Turrican trailer was so short. And then I was unhappy that the Turrican compilation was so expensive.
Did you buy a copy?
I did, of course.
Yes, which one?
The Ultra one.
The 200 euro.
I know, and I don't like it that it is 200 euros.
For the PlayStation or the Switch?
Switch.
Switch. Okay, I bought the PlayStation version.
Really? Yeah, I love the idea of playing it mobile, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of Turrican, and so I have to pay it. But
sure.
It could be less, and I don't need this figurine, but okay.
And it will keep the value, for sure.
Yeah, I hope the box is not too big. I don't like too big collector's editions.
By the way, look what I have here.
Yeah.
30 years old.
I got it too. This Hülsbeck, the middle one, Shades.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I bought it at the Amiga convention in Cologne.
Yeah.
92?
92 or 91, I don't remember exactly.
I think we all were on this Amiga convention and
yes,
there.
Yeah,
But we didn't know each other.
I remember I stand in front of a big wall where every cracker has put his tag on, and some dude came over to me and asked me, well, "Who are you?" And I said, "Nobody." Lamer. Okay, I'm a lamer. Now I know. Yeah.
Is that even still a word today?
Lamer?
I don't. I don't think
I think
that
it is a
anybody.
word.
Do kids still understand that?
No.
No.
You should.
Today
you
everybody
shouldn't
is a
use it.
lamer.
No,
Or
I don't think it's a nice word to use. It's not just an insult. It is also, how is it called? I forgot. It's just not not a nice word. If you think about what it means, right? Lame and lamer. It's ableist, basically. It's an ableist word, so I don't think it's used commonly anymore. But back then, there was the elite and the lamers.
Yeah, I wasn't in a group, so I'm a lamer. So, well. But Michael, thanks a lot for showing me this old cooking DVDs of mine.
I still love them.
Appreciate it.
I still
appreciate it.
Put them in the DVD player and watch them. They're quite funny.
Have you found the Easter eggs?
Some of them, I guess.
Yeah, there's even there's a game included on the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a kind of.
I know what
Lunar
I'm watching tonight. Or tomorrow.
Okay, so thanks a lot, everybody. I have to leave because tomorrow morning I will join Frank for Return TV. So I have to sleep now.
Thanks again. If you want, you can join us tomorrow evening too. We are still online tomorrow at 10 p.m. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ayo.
Yeah, I found another one. If you like to talk about a game that a match, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's the second iteration. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, this is the new one, I think.
That's the third iteration then.
Yeah. That's not Great Courts 1. It's not Great Courts 2.
Okay, great. So yeah, well, in Germany, I think it was called Great Courts 1, 2, and it was called Jimmy Connor's Pro Tennis Tour.
Jimmy Connor's Pro Tennis, yeah.
Ubisoft was able. That was at one time where they really got behind the product with the tennis game, and they did a really great job. And that's the thing with publishers. You give them your catalog, and they like one title in particular. They really get behind it, but then everything else falls behind. And we didn't like that. But with the tennis game, they did a tremendous job. And so the original was developed by Lothar, and the second one, I think, as well. And then we did a third one. And we had pretty big plans with that, including online play and rankings and things like that. We were running behind with the technology, the back end. I had a team here in Austin that was working on the back end. And so this was all going to be part of the Blue Byte game channel, which we never really, we didn't have time to really build this up into what I wanted it to be, because Ubisoft bought us out first. But that was an awesome game, and in a way it was a no-brainer to bring it back, and with better graphics, and I think it did pretty good actually. It was not developed in-house. I think it was an external team somewhere in Bochum.
So I found this one.
Yeah, that's the original, right?
Yeah, and you've got your Blue Byte under the Great Courts logo.
Yes, and that was all we were getting. We wouldn't get they wouldn't put our logo on it. And as these things go, you basically have to negotiate for every millimeter, for every inch, and we want our logo on the front. We want our name on the front. We want these credits. It's just, you basically have to, it's like pulling teeth, right?
Yeah.
The publisher will not give you anything, any recognition if they don't have to. At least back in those days, that was the case. And we just said, no, but we want our logo on it. So with the next version, there was our logo on the box, and excuse me. So
Not even one name on it. It's just your Blue Byte name on it. It's no name, no programmers, no team, nothing.
Well, I don't know. This was also part of our interview, I think, from last month or so. It's the the fact that the personality cult, the brand name, turning people into brands. In America, they do it from kindergarten. They teach kids how to present themselves, and it's not a German thing where it's called Lothar Schmidt's Great Chords, which it should have been, because here it's called Sid Meier's Civilization. And even with Civilization 5 and 6, it's still Sid Meier's Civilization, although he didn't touch any of these games. And it sells if you have a name in connection, with a product, like maybe forget his first name now, Klein, with his computers and everything. You recognize that down the road, and we never did that. And it would be interesting to actually see the manual. It's probably very bare, and we never even did. I don't think we even mentioned the function of a producer. I wasn't. The last game I programmed was probably Tom and the Ghost or something. And then I continued working on tools and this and that. But, I was producing all the games. But I don't know, it's sometime half through the 90s, it's like, okay, maybe we should put my name in there in the credits. And I think that's symptomatic for the German, I don't know, psyche. We don't really want to be, I don't want to step into the limelight, and I don't like that either. But I think it's a mistake. So a little bit of personality cult can't hurt. Look at Chris Hülsbeck. I mean, Chris is great at presenting himself, and he's still relevant today. Yeah. Everybody knows Chris Hülsbeck, but who knows, Armin Gäste and Manfred Trenz, and very private people, but they contributed a lot of things, important things to the growth of the industry back then. So a little bit more, sit upright, and hey, I did this, Nobody can take that away from me.
Thomas, I just checked mobigames.com, and you're mentioned as a producer in 20 games.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't checked that, but
yeah.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think we could do a lot more with personality, at least, especially in Germany. I think it's not. I mean, a good example was the video trailer yesterday for Turrican. They mentioned like Chris Hülsbeck, but they did not mention Manfred Trenz, as far as I remember. Mm-hmm. And I mean, of course, Chris' music was very important for the game, but it's still a good game. And it would have been equally important to mention Manfred Trenz and probably some other guys involved with the project, and also show this Commodore 64 version, which was the original. And not only the Super Nintendo version, which is great. It's great. Frank Matzke did a great job on the graphics, but I think it wasn't not mentioned either. And I mean, a guy like Frank Matzke, for example, who really did pixels for some beautiful games like Apedia and Super Turrican and stuff like that. I mean, and who is also having a big role in German software industry right now, or games industry. I don't know if anyone ever heard his name outside of this small bubble that we have here. And it would be nice to really put some names more prominent on the covers. Also, when I worked at Amiga Joker or in my whole editorial career, I was not in most cases, I was not even allowed to talk to coders or producers or something like that. The PR guys just said, okay, you are talking to me. You have to talk to me. You are not allowed to contact anyone from the team. And I mean, I can understand it because you need to keep the workflow going. But if I wanted to do an interview or stuff like that, it was always only the PR guy I was allowed, or at most times I was only allowed to talk to the PR people, but very seldomly to actually someone who was involved in coding a game or designing a game. And I always found that a little bit, well, unfortunately. And I think it would be nice to really build up some kind of pop stars within the software industry. We do not have enough real human stars in the whole games industry.
I mean, does anybody know who started SAP up? Do you know the name? You may, but I mean, I don't. But I mean, that's one of the biggest software companies in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and you name it. And I'm not saying that we should copy it, but I think it has been holding the German industry back in some ways, entertainment industry in general, and other parts as well, high tech. So I don't know. I mean, here you have Richard Gary and Chris Roberts, and I don't know. I mean, they're like people are falling on their feet and they're taking a knee. And I mean, most of them are really cool. So some of them are not so cool. I don't know. It's just a topic that rarely gets talked about. That with all this, and it needs shows and events like this that we are attending here right now to kind of pull all that out to make sense of it, right? To understand who was who and what did he or she do. And so in that respect, I really enjoy doing this, because maybe some things will become clearer for future generations. And I know you guys have big plans with the museum and everything. So good luck to you and everything. I hope that virus goes away pretty soon, so you can have a revenue again. But yeah, I mean, it's
You have this now also. I'm just thinking in the indie scene. If you look at the guy now, of course I should remember the name, but I don't. But the guy who did Fez, or these indie developers from the US are very prominently featured with their names usually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are still at this point where with German productions, maybe it's not so clear, these to bring the names out. Although it's a bit better now, I think, because of the indie scene, indie development.
You know one single indie developer from Germany by name? One single?
Well, I know you.
Well,
and
yeah.
I think I know the person who did. You see now, of course, because I'm online, I can't remember anything. But there's the guy who did Metal Warrior for the C64. I think that his name is known in the indie scene.
Yeah.
But I don't think they are that popular and prominently featured as this guy who did Fez and the guy who did Axiom Verge, and even the guy, those names that are associated with these games, when they're from the US, they are usually much more well known.
Mm-hmm.
It's now my problem that I can't remember any one of them, but it come to me later tonight probably.
It's a media thing, really. As I did like 3,000 reviews for tonline.de, I was never really asked to do an interview with a coder or a designer, except if it was Sid Meier. It's just that the media just wanted to have the big names. They wanted not to build up big names, but you
have to build it up, exactly.
Yeah, you have to build it up, exactly, and that's what I was not allowed to do. Right. And we sometimes tried to do that. In Joker magazine, I sometimes tried to do that in the magazines I founded in the 2000s, like the 360 Live magazine. But you really you need the media to support building up stars, and that's, I don't know exactly the reasons, but I do know it just does not happen. It did not happen with T-Online, which is or used to be one of the biggest media outlets covering computer games. And I don't know about other media outlets, but I was just simply not allowed to do it. And so it did not happen.
I mean, it would have to start within the company that is releasing the publisher, because if the guy or girl is really that good, then that person can take another job after they finish this one and get twice the money anyways. You don't need to put the name out there. But companies are worried that they're going to lose talent, number one, if they become too famous.
Really?
And number two is that, I'm an engineer first and foremost, so I'm applying this to myself. Sometimes people that think like engineers put their foot in their mouth, and they're very honest, right? So when you, Richard, go and say, hey, so did you have any problems developing the game? The engineer is going to tell you all the problems they have and all the bugs that are still in there and they can't find them. And it's just the nature of the beast, and I think they're trying to really limit that to only let the the corporate message out. And I always laugh when I look at I don't know, I've been to one trade show or another, and I think it was Quake or Wolfenstein or something. I don't know what it was, a huge hit, and the guy stood there on the podium and said, "Oh yeah, we knew it was going to be a success before we even wrote the first line of code." Bullshit. You don't, right? So, but there's this corporate thinking, and then when it works, it just gets overdone. Oh yeah, we knew all this, and we had a plan. And can I talk to the programmer? No, he's not here right now because he might tell you a different story. So
yeah, it's all about control, really. The PR and the marketing guys try to take control, and they want to know they want to really know how your story is progressing, which story is going to be published. And that's one of the reasons why I actually left the whole editorial scene, because it became too controlled by the software industry. I remember a time when I got the review copy of some soccer game, which was not from Electronic Arts, but from another big publisher, Japanese one. And I was given a handbook on how to review the game, on which screenshots I was allowed to take, which football club has to be in front, and which football club I'm not allowed to take screenshots. And that was one of the reasons. That was really a milestone for me. I really felt like they are not taking us seriously as a magazine or as a journalist. They just want us to fulfill what they want to see published in the media. And that's when I decided to stop the whole thing. And I wished I could have done, I would have had more freedom. Also, in Germany, I always felt like, Germany was big and probably big in the software, in the games industry in the 90s, in the early 90s, in the big days of Amiga and stuff like that. But it felt, it lost its position like in 94, 95 or something. And then what happened. There are almost no big developers left.
Well, there never was a German Ubisoft, right? I mean, that's basically if you can nail it down to one definition, then there has never been a German Ubisoft. There were a couple of British Ubisofts before Ubisoft, US Gold and I don't know, but there never was. So I don't know. And I also found that the publishers amongst ourselves were very mistrusting of everything and everybody, and keeping secrets and slightly different over here, where people share a lot more of the technology, at least on the engineer level. The suits are not talking to each other either, or if they do, they're lying to each other just to distract the competition. But there was a deeply seated, it's mine, like the Spießbürgerlich, I don't know how to translate that, It's a typical German thing. It's like, it's mine and I'm not going to give it to anybody. And yeah, but we have to publish it. No. You know, and is the copy protection good enough? And spend some hours and hours and hours discussing copy protection with external developers. You know, and they said, look, we're not going to spend thousands and thousands of Deutsche Marks for the copy protection, because ultimately the better your game is, the faster it's going to be cracked. Which is a good thing, because we're still going to sell games. And but it's like this, I'm not letting go, which kind of held, I think, the German industry as a whole back in those days. And then, yeah, time was up. They started with the IPOs, you know, 96, 97, I don't know when that started, 97 probably, when all of a sudden it was en vogue to go to the, you know, go public, do an IPO, go to the stock market. And there just wasn't the know-how there. And I remember having a really hard time finding a CFO for Blue Byte, because we had an IPO planned. Here in the States, I could have gone anywhere, and people from really high-end colleges would have jumped at the opportunity to join a company like Blue Byte with a portfolio and to take their company public. It took forever to find a CFO, and he was a good guy, but he didn't know anything about games. He, you know, and it was a hard thing to convince him, because they all asked, what do you do here? Computer game development. Okay, yeah, well, I think I have a better offer someplace else. So it was difficult to find. And that, again, with the mindset, you know, it's like, I think some things could have been different if the public had been a little bit more open towards the computer games industry at the time.
Yeah.
Because after all, computer games are the hardest discipline in all of computing. You have everything in there. You have AI, you have 3D graphics, you have back end, you have thousands, millions of players that you need to manage nowadays, and it's the hardest discipline of all. Why we got so little respect back in the day?
Yeah,
maybe it's not just games but all entertainment, because German movies are also not that internationally, I would say, successful, right? So maybe it's the whole entertainment industry, not just games, that is a bit lacking in Germany.
But movies do get they get back up by politicians. They get a lot of money from like official money, and this has just changed since for 5 or 6 years or something. Now we have politicians claiming, hey, I do like computer games, I do play computer games, and I do show up at the Gamescom show. And for maybe 2 years, they now promise to support the German software industry or games industry by financing developers. Well, they do promise. As far as I know, they're still lacking to actually give the money out, but it should happen now. I think there was an official announcement yesterday that there is a second round of support for games for the German games industry. So things are changing very, very slowly. What also has changed a lot is the openness between developers. I think nowadays we took over this like open approach towards communication between game developers in Germany. We have lots of co-working spaces where we have developers meeting like every month and discussing ideas, sharing ideas, maybe sharing resources. And this has changed a lot, but I think nowadays it's very hard to you have to get the money, and you also have to get the financial know-how in order to have a big to be able to go from a small indie team which just can survive because most guys live at home with their parents. In order to grow such a company, there are only very few indie companies which really get bigger by just producing games which are successful and sell enough units in order to really get profit and in order to grow in a natural way. And but we have a few examples, like the Mimimi team in Munich, for example, which are, I mean, like 10 years ago, they were, I don't know, maybe 3 students or something. And now they are selling games worldwide and getting recognized by international media. And this is, well, they've, as far as I know, they got a bit of financial support from official channels, but it's basically what they did it on their own. But now we get, if we get more support from the politics, and if we get more support from official channels which spend a bit of money to support teams, then yeah, the German games industry might look different in 5 years. Also, when stuff like the games from the Ubisoft team in Berlin, show up and gets talked about. Hey, we do big stuff here in Germany. Then it should improve the whole situation. Yeah.
Well, at least I want to say something about times back then. When I went in the games industry, it was about 1990 to 1993, roundabout. And this was also the companies I worked for, they were not as, what can I say? I was working for Starbyte, for example, and they were known about how they pay their freelancers. I was at Magic Bytes before. They were known how they paid the freelancers.
Yeah.
And some other companies which are similar. This was the one part. I always thought back then that the games industry was kind of split. There were good companies and there were bad companies. Some of the good companies, Blue Byte was known as good company, and so was Ascon or Ascaron, or Italian also. But many others weren't. And I remember how many super creative people left the industry because of that. And the other thing I remember of is that the German games industry seemed, for me, from my perspective, just to rely on hypes. They didn't work on their own market in a way. When I left the industry, I was involved in some other projects, and then commercial ad games were a big thing. Mm-hmm. Then web games were a big thing. Then some business type stuff was a big thing. And that was nothing which lasts. It was over after a few years, and everybody was still complaining how bad the situation is. And I don't know. I think that there was something missing in the industry, something to build up a constant basis.
Which
for
games?
Decades.
Which games did you work on for Magic Bytes?
The Second World, and I did Mindbender C64 for Gremlin Graphics, which was produced at Magic Bytes.
Uh-huh.
And then I moved over to Starbright, which was right after their hype year with Rings of Medusa and Transworld and stuff. And I worked on Transworld and Invest and
Picture.
Yeah, 2 of the games I was involved. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
And then things got worse somehow, and then this crisis with Attic started, and it was quite difficult, and it was a good thing that I moved on after that, because I had some projects with first with Talion, which was a small project called Neuronics, and then I was involved later on in some stuff with Eclipse. But it was also the time when PC grew stronger, and consoles started becoming a thing. And I'm not sure. I usually have I personally think that many things went wrong that time. And for some reason, I think what happened till Phenomedia, it still was going on. And I personally think that's never happened that something, as I said, that something was built on their own. I think Blue Byte could have happened, but then Ubisoft came.
Well, I don't know if you remember or know this, but Phenomedia tried to buy me out.
Oh.
Yeah. After their IPO, they came to me and made an offer that I couldn't refuse, but I didn't. I refused it anyways, because theoretically I would have never have to work again. But as it turned out, their books were cooked. There was one guy I didn't like back from the Starbyte days. So no, we didn't do that. We actually had a conference. I actually called everybody into the conference room and said, okay, here's the offer. We would basically do the software development for Phenomedia because that wasn't their strong suit. They had the Mohun, and but they also had they had a listing. They were at the stock market, and I was still catching up and spending thousands and hundreds of thousands of Deutsche Marks to get the prospectus ready. So in some way it would have made sense, but the people were not simpatico. There wasn't a good chemistry. So, and actually, as a matter of fact, that was the kickoff for our own IPO, where we said, okay, look, we're going to do this ourselves. And but yeah, being first, a lot of times, that's all you have to be, even if your product is only marginal. But being first, being best almost every time.
Okay, I want to throw something in the room. We could switch to a German, maybe, or whatever people prefer, because there's no English guest anymore.
My family is probably waiting for me for dinner.
So, so me too. I have to. Okay. I mean, I have to leave, unfortunately. May I say that I'm really very thankful that I got the invitation to join you guys.
Thomas, Zoom did a cut. I don't know why. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to really, basically what Richard said there. Really appreciate it didn't want to leave it like that. So maybe it was just a temporary glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, of course. Thanks again. If you want, you can revisit us tomorrow. We did the same thing again. Would be great to hear from you again. It was a great pleasure to have all you here.
But the shortcomings that we talked about, shows like this and organizations like yours, a lot of things went bad and wrong in the past. We all make mistakes, but you can maybe, set this right, or at least on a historical level, looking back, and so that the next generation can learn from our mistakes, because we rarely talk about our mistakes. We always talk about our successes and how great this was. And like I said, I knew that Settlers was a success the moment I laid eyes on it, which is of course bullshit. I ended up in hospital. I was so worried. I thought I had a heart attack before Settlers was launched. It was really bad to my health. But we can only learn from past mistakes, and if the next generation is clever enough to learn from our mistakes, then they don't have to make those. They make other mistakes. So, but I really want to say thanks very much for having me, and maybe I'll join you tomorrow. I have to check I'll let you know, Patrick. Okay.
Okay, no problem. It's the same account. You can join whenever you want. It's no problem. Thanks again for joining us. Vielen Dank.
Alrighty. Guys, great job. Thank you.
Hope to see you again.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye, Thomas.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
So, ich gehe dann mal aufs Deutsche jetzt, wo wir hier unter uns sind. Ich würde sagen, wir machen hier jetzt noch die letzte Viertelstunde und gehen dann in unsere wohlverdiente Nachtruhe. Außer ihr möchtet noch eine längere Aftershow machen. Wir haben ja auch noch den morgigen Tag. Also ich denke mal, das müssen wir jetzt gucken, aber wir können hier gerne noch mal so ein bisschen das Revue passieren lassen. Und dann müssen wir gucken. Also wenn noch viel Redebedarf ist, können wir gerne nochmal auf Twitch wechseln hinterher. Wir haben jetzt hier noch circa eine Viertelstunde, aber wir können auch gerne noch wechseln. Das müsst ihr entscheiden. Also ich bin erstmal geplättet, was hier passiert ist. Nein, müssen wir um Gottes Willen nicht. Ich bin auch geplättet, was hier passiert ist. Ein Sorry schon mal an Oliver, auch gerne hier öffentlich, dass wir dich vorhin nicht gleich mit reingenommen haben. Ich habe ja auch irgendwann so ein bisschen den Überblick verloren, ehrlich gesagt, weil alle wollten ab 22 Uhr sprechen und hatten nachher Termine und sind dann auch vorher reingekommen und dadurch wurde es dann hier natürlich recht voll. Also wir machen morgen...
Ja, es hat sich halt eine Themenverschiebung gegeben und das Thema, wo ich halt hätte was sagen können, das war vorbei, als ich dazu kam.
Richtig, das lag aber daran, dass auch viele früher da waren, als sie wollten und schon immer mich dann im Chat auch gefragt haben, wann sie reinkommen. Also sorry, wir machen morgen mit Sicherheit nochmal grundlegende Gespräche über viele Dinge und haben ja auch morgen noch sehr viele spannende Gäste. Aber vielen, vielen Dank erstmal auch an das Team, dass ihr so toll mitgearbeitet habt. Wir sind hier teilweise echt auf und ab gelaufen. Bei Robin hat man es ja sogar gesehen im Video, was hier passiert ist. Vielen, vielen Dank an euch nochmal, dass das alles so gut geklappt hat. Und jetzt können wir gucken, ob wir nochmal ein bisschen was Revue passieren lassen, uns noch irgendwo festquatschen, nur daran denken, dass wir kurz vor 2 dann auf Twitch wechseln müssen.
Ja, wie fandet ihr es? Ich kann es immer schwer beurteilen. Ich bin auch so leise.
Nö, alles gut.
Also
okay.
ich fand es absolut genial. Also da waren ja wirklich so viele Legenden dabei, die jetzt mal auch live zu hören. Ich hatte, ich glaube, die ganze Zeit ein Dauergrinsen auf dem Mund. Ja, das war
nicht nur
wirklich...
du, Ingo, mein Handy stand nicht still. Wir haben diverse Glückwünsche bekommen für eine großartige Sendung. Vielen Dank auch an die Zuschauer, die mir schon geschrieben haben. Alle, die dabei waren, auch Daivd Fox hat eben nochmal geschrieben, dass er sich geehrt fühlte, bei uns zu sein. Wir fühlten uns geehrt, dass er bei uns war. Das war großartig und es kommen hier im Minutentakt Mails bei mir an. Also vielen, vielen Dank an alle, die auch hier zugeschaut haben. Und nochmal der Hinweis, wie gesagt, wir packen das mit Sicherheit auf YouTube, das Video.
Wenn es denn heil ist.
Bitte was?
Wenn es denn heil ist.
Wir haben mehrere Backups laufen, dürfte kein Problem sein. Guckt euch das da gerne nochmal an, abonniert uns da. Ich habe schon so Sachen im Hinterkopf, die verrate ich jetzt noch nicht. Ich habe da so eine Idee, aber das erzähle ich erst nächste Woche. Es ist Wahnsinn, was hier passiert ist, wenn man gesehen hat, was hier für Geschichten waren. Ich kann das erst verstehen, wenn ich mir das Ganze nochmal in Ruhe anschaue. Ich denke, den meisten geht es genauso. Ich habe gesehen, einige von euch hatten fast Tränen in den Augen und ich fand es großartig. Vielen Dank für eure Hilfe erstmal. Und wenn wir jetzt noch Themen haben, kann es gerne weitergehen. Ansonsten grinsen wir wahrscheinlich die ganze Nacht weiter.
Vor allem spannend fand ich, es hat sich ja so eine gewisse Eigendynamik irgendwann mal entwickelt. Es musste ja dann nichts mehr moderiert werden. Ja.
Ein Glück, dass das irgendwann mal passiert war. Ich habe am Anfang gedacht, oh mein Gott, jetzt müssen wir mal anschieben. Nein, das passierte pop. Und dann, hi, wie geht's dir denn? Ich habe dich schon lange nicht mehr gesehen. Geil.
Ja, wir hätten wirklich weggehen können.
Ja, das einzige Schwierige war halt, dass alle gerne am Anfang drankommen wollten. Und ich hatte mit einmal 15 Leute, die reden wollten. Und das geht natürlich logistisch nicht. Auch durch die Zeitverschiebung hatte jeder natürlich einen anderen Grund, weshalb er dran sein wollte. Und wir haben versucht, es jedem recht zu machen. Und natürlich klappt es nicht immer. Und,
ja, also alle waren halt natürlich nicht gleichmäßig oft dran. Es gab halt schon einige Personen, die halt ein bisschen im Hintertreff gaben.
Wir haben es versucht. Und ich bedanke mich auch nochmal bei Ralf Klein, das war auch der Hammer, dass auch so viele Fragen aus dem Chat kamen, fand ich sehr schön. Das war auch total spannend, mal in seinem Büro wieder reinzuschauen.
Ist da sehr hinterher. Der hat jetzt noch eine Frage offen, die will er morgen nochmal stellen.
Okay, also ich habe schon eine Nachricht bekommen von Ralf, wo drin stand, bis nachher, bis gleich, bis morgen. Also das geht noch in die nächste Runde, ist doch cool.
Einer unserer treuesten Zuschauer, Prinz Valium, den kennen wir schon von Twitch. Ich fand es auch episch. Am Anfang war es ein bisschen stressig, ne, Patrick, was du auch gesagt hast. Ich war voll und ganz nur damit beschäftigt, die hinzuhalten, die zu begrüßen, die erneut zu kommen, weil die kamen teilweise, dann kamen 3 Leute in 2 Minuten und so schnell konnte ich denen nicht schreiben.
Ich musste teilweise hier in den Teilnehmerlisten scrollen, weil ich nicht mehr wusste, wer wo war. Wir machen morgen jetzt nochmal ein Vorgespräch, müssen wir jetzt nicht hier öffentlich diskutieren, wir noch ein bisschen Struktur reinbringen, aber für diesen ersten Versuch, das gab es ja in der Form, glaube ich, fast noch nie in dieser Form. Dafür haben wir das wirklich ordentlich hingekriegt. Vielen, vielen Dank, wie gesagt, für die Hilfe im Hintergrund. Ich wäre hier wahrscheinlich irgendwann nur noch auf und ab gelaufen, hat eine Wand gerammt, keine Ahnung. Robin ist, glaube ich, hier eine halbe Stunde nervös durch den Raum gelaufen.
Halbe Stunde?
Ich wollte jetzt nicht 5 Stunden sagen. Er hat ja zum Glück
Robin, wie viele Kalorien hast du verbraucht?
Ich habe das alles an Schokokuchen wieder aufgegessen, was an Patricks Frau mit reingebracht hat.
Also das fand ich auch ganz toll, wie Robin da dann immer mit der Kamera interveniert hat. dass auch andere Leute mal sprechen konnten. Das war echt super, das hat genau gepasst. Weil wenn wir hier als Gast einen Programmierer haben und der sieht sein eigenes Spiel, die Packung, dann wird er natürlich dazu was sagen und das ist ja dann auch passiert. Das war eigentlich eine super Idee. Ich fand's toll.
Deswegen habe ich vorher dich wieder rausgesucht.
Auch eine geniale Idee, das einfach zu zeigen, die Sachen so, an denen die ganzen Menschen beteiligt waren. Es war wirklich eine Ehre, finde ich, hier dabei zu sein und diesen Leuten zuzuhören.
Und das war erst die erste Runde. Es geht morgen noch mal weiter. Wir können ja schon mal ein paar Snippets sagen, was morgen noch passiert. Ich kann ja noch mal hier in unsere Liste gucken. Also wenn alles gut, also erstmal versuche ich natürlich noch mal Rebecca anzuschreiben. Ich habe sie nicht mehr erreicht mit der Sendung. Sie wollte ja eigentlich um kurz nach 10 dabei sein. Aber morgen haben wir wahrscheinlich John Heer. Wir haben das gesamte Factor 5 Team da. Und wir haben nochmal Richard Löwenstein da, Frank Matzke willkommen, Bernd Lehan, Oliver wird mit Sicherheit auch nochmal dabei sein. Morgen haben wir etwas weniger Leute. Ach ja, und Bernhard Ewers kommt nochmal, Rolf Klein kommt nochmal. Also da kriegen wir sicherlich nochmal spannende Infos.
Bis auf John Heer und eventuell Rebecca Heinemann sind es dann alle Deutsche.
Das ist richtig.
Er muss einfach Deutsch sprechen, das macht er als Engländer bestimmt richtig gerne.
Ich versuche auch noch, wie gesagt, 1, 2 weitere dazu zu bekommen, wo ich noch nichts klären konnte. Aber lassen wir uns überraschen, was passiert. Ich weiß es selbst nicht und ich bin sehr begeistert, dass heute 90% der Gäste auch von selbst in den Warteraum gekommen sind. Also vielen, vielen Dank auch an alle Gäste, die es jetzt nochmal hören. Das war wirklich eine tolle Aktion.
Was die Gäste auch zum Teil, was die Gäste zum Teil auch nicht wussten, ist, wer überhaupt kommt, ne? Weil Chris Hülsbeck.
Das ist nicht ganz richtig, Marcel. Ich habe auch Chris und allen anderen eine komplette Time-Schedule-Liste geschickt. Aber die meisten haben ja auch nicht gelesen, wo der Zoom-Link ist. Also,
okay, vielleicht überlesen, weil der Chris war auf jeden Fall angenehm überrascht. Ach, guck mal, die kenne ich doch, hat er mir geschrieben.
Ja, absolut.
Das war ein wirklich emotionaler Moment mit dem Chris Hülsbeck für mich. Weil,
hatte er gedacht, er kommt hier alleine rein oder dann ist ja.
Nein, er wusste auch, dass er morgen mit Factor 5 zusammen da ist und eigentlich war es bekannt. Aber wie gesagt, man liest ja auch nicht immer alles, wenn man gerade ganz viele Termine hat und von Sendung zu Sendung switcht sozusagen.
Ich hatte zwischendurch Angst, dass Miches hier zu viel schreit und miaut, aber sie war auch ganz ruhig, zum Glück.
Und du hattest nicht als Einziger eine Katze. Ich habe zwischendurch gesehen, dass bei Simon immer eine Katze durchs Bild
geht.
Leider war das, glaube ich, nicht live.
Ich glaube, meiner hat sich schlafen gelegt.
Hatte sich. Also ihr hattet alle euren Spaß, wie ich euch an euren Lächeln ansehe.
Es war groß.
Ich muss auch sagen,
es war
Lukas Arzt,
ich habe mich gefühlt wie ein Schulkind.
Ja, Lukas Arzt, also es war ja fast die wichtigsten Persönlichkeiten von Lukas Arzt da, außer vielleicht noch George Lucas.
Ron Gilbert hätte noch gefehlt, oder?
Ja. Mr. Schäfer, also da gab es noch ein paar mehr. Also das ist,
aber trotzdem.
Das ist aber auch genau wie die gleiche Nummer, wenn irgendjemand meint, so von wegen, dass alle gute Musik aus Deutschland nur von Chris Hülsbeck kam. Also das ist...
Nö.
Lass mir doch die Illusion.
Genau.
Ja.
Ich fand's trotzdem toll. Vor allem, die haben ja noch so, gerade auch mit dem Zack McCracken T-Shirt, ich fand das ja sowas von kultig.
Ich musste ja noch schnell das Zack McCracken aus der Glasvitrine rausholen, weil ich hatte nur das Manic Mansion ausgepackt und dann kommt das Bild auf von ihm und ich denke, ach verdammt, ich muss schnell noch in die Vitrine.
Und auch die
Vor allem habt ihr gesehen, wie Daivd Fox dauernd die Hintergründe geändert hat. Der hat ja dauernd immer rumgespielt, ja, so richtig nerdig, ja, dauernd immer die Hintergründe angepasst, mal das probiert und
das waren auch richtig nerdige Hintergründe.
Ja.
Ja, Rolf in seinem Labor.
Einfach herrlich. Einfach herrlich, das Labor. War so neidisch.
Ich habe nachgefragt, wie das Labor ausschaut.
Also ich wäre da auch gerne mal reingegangen und hätte mal geguckt, was da alles drin steht, weil das war super interessant. Und der Danny hat schon direkt große Augen bekommen. Oh.
Nein, das war ein ganz großartiger Abend. Es war ein ganz großartiger Abend und auch was ich am meisten genossen habe, war, als sich die Menschen, die das Genre Adventure quasi für uns erfunden haben, dann total verstrickt haben mit Text-Adventure und Grafik und das war einfach, das war toll.
Dass sie sich trotzdem alle irgendwie kennen. Ne? Also irgendwie scheinen die in den 80er Jahren in den Messen sich...
Die haben gegenseitig ihre Spiele gespielt.
Das ist aber auch irgendwie ungewöhnlich. Also ich weiß jetzt nicht genau, bei den deutschen Entwicklern habe ich immer das Gefühl, dass das erst so richtig in den 90ern losging, dass die sich untereinander kennengelernt haben. Weil damals, als ich dabei war, das war noch so eine Phase, wo man das Gefühl hatte, so da ist jede Firma eine Insel. Und bei den amerikanischen, das ist irgendwie interessant, fand ich, weil da zum Beispiel die Demoszene, die ist total inselmäßig entstanden. Da waren immer irgendwelche Grafiker, die so für sich selber irgendwas gemacht haben und dann so ähnlich wie bei Shareware haben da irgendwelche Leute was gesammelt, aber die hatten überhaupt keinen Kontakt zueinander. Aber die Entwickler interessanterweise schon.
Ganz kurz, bevor wir jetzt hier Schluss machen mit dem ersten Teil. Oliver, was hast du für ein tolles Bild im Hintergrund?
Das habe ich mal 2010 gepixelt. Das gibt es noch mit Kämpfern da vorne vor. Das war der Hintergrund für 25 Years of Ya Kung Fu.
Cool. Ja, sieht toll aus.
Das auch mal spielen.
Das mit einem Abo. Ein Hintergrund24.de Abo für Ingo. Wäre doch eine Möglichkeit.
Und die Bilder werden rollierend abgekassiert.
Pixelgenau abgerechnet. Pixelgenau.
Und wenn Sie jetzt bestellen, bekommen Sie noch diese Folgen dazu.
Genau. Dann gibt es halt dann irgendwie so EGA-Abos und CGA-Abos und
Bernstein, Monochrom.
Bernstein-Abos.
Also liebe Zuhörer, falls ihr uns jetzt hier vollkommen entspannt, schon fast überentspannt seht, das ist wahrscheinlich geschuldet der Situation, dass wir uns vorher sehr viel Mühe damit gemacht haben, dass das für euch eine total tolle Erfahrung wird. Ich hoffe, die Englischsprachigen werden ja schon gegangen sein. Ich hoffe, das war für euch keine in Tüdelchen Belastung, dass wir es in Englisch gemacht haben. Ich fand das total lustig, dass es von selbst so gekommen ist, dass wir irgendwann dann doch alle immer noch weiter Englisch gesprochen haben.
Weil als die englischen Gäste schon weg waren.
Ja, aber es hat natürlich den Vorteil, dass das kann man auch noch Engländern zeigen, weil wir reden ja über eine deutsche Szene, die für Engländer vielleicht komplett außen vor ist, weil sie nicht in Englisch geschehen ist.
Ja.
Ja, das denke ich mir auch. Das könnte dazu helfen, dass das auch englischsprachige Leute mal darüber hören, was da so passiert ist.
Ja, wir könnten ja auch mal englischsprachige Leute hier in den Stammtisch einladen. Das geht ja auch.
Wie gesagt,
also wenn er jetzt mal kommen will.
Ja. Vielleicht sollten wir noch kurz die letzten Minuten hier auf dem Kanal dafür nutzen, nochmal zu sagen, was wir da eigentlich machen an Stammtischen. Wer mag das nochmal kurz zusammenfassen, was donnerstags und freitags bei uns los ist?
Ja,
das,
jeden Donnerstag.
Ja, nee, erzähl du.
Das, was jeden Donnerstagabend passiert, ist, wir treffen uns gemeinsam. Wir suchen uns vorher ein Spiel aus, auf das wir irgendwie Lust haben. Das wird vorher in einem offenen Voting entschieden. System eigentlich irrelevant. Also wir spielen da alles. Commodore C64, Amiga, Konsolenspiele. Natürlich alles retro-bezogen. Jetzt nicht irgendwie das Neueste auf der Switch oder das Neueste auf der PlayStation 4. Da kann jeder frei mitmachen. Also wir würden uns auch gerne über neue Gesichter freuen. Informationen dazu, wie ihr daran teilnehmen könnt, findet ihr auf www.retrokompott.de. Und dazu haben wir auch jeden Freitag eine offene Talkrunde über Teamspeak. Da kann auch jeder mitmachen. Die Informationen findet ihr auch unter www.retrokompott.de. Und ja, kommt einfach mal vorbei, schaltet euch rein, hört einfach erstmal nur zu, wenn ihr vielleicht ein bisschen schüchtern seid oder nicht da sofort irgendwie mit einsteigen wollt. Wir beißen nicht, wir freuen uns über jeden Neuen, der Bock drauf hat, einfach mal über die guten alten Spiele zu reden. Auch gerne beim Stammtisch, dann am Freitag auch gerne mal über neuere Sachen. Da haben wir auch schon etwas länger über zum Beispiel The Last of Us 2 geredet. Ja, und wir sind offen für alles, kommt vorbei, schaut es euch an, wir beißen nicht.
Ja, dann würde ich sagen, ja bitte.
Wer nämlich auch dann wissen möchte, was es mit Abos und Ingo auf sich hat, der sollte auf jeden Fall beim Stammtisch mal teilnehmen. Wir können das ja gerne nochmal ansprechen, ne Ingo?
Ja.
Ja, natürlich, gerne. So, wir müssen jetzt, glaube ich, Schluss machen, oder?
Ja, ich würde vorschlagen, wir machen jetzt hier Schluss, weil um 2 Uhr ist der Stream ja zu Ende. Wir gehen jetzt nochmal auf Twitch gerne, wenn ihr wollt. Können wir da noch ein bisschen quatschen. Wir lassen den Stream hier weiter laufen auf Twitch. Infos seht ihr auch hier auf der Ecke, da findet ihr uns unter Retro-Kompott. Wir bedanken uns bei der Gamescom, wir bedanken uns bei allen, die hier zugeschaut haben auf dem Kanal, machen noch ein bisschen Aftershow und sehen uns morgen ab 22 Uhr an gleicher Stelle wieder und gucken mal, was wir dann hinbekommen. Vielen, vielen Dank an euch. Danke an alle, die zugeschaut und zugehört haben. Und wir switchen dann gleich mal um. Vielen Dank an euch alle hier.
Okay, tschüss erstmal.
Tschüss.
Ja. Tschüss.